Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. What's the best thing about being 1-0? It's the chance to be 2-0, and that's what Utah football will be looking to do this coming weekend for the Rice Eccles home opener against Cal Poly, a Ring of Honor game. Coach Mack will see his name elevated in the stadium as he so deserves. And we will all be there, right? Right? Everybody show up. Let's go. I actually don't think that's going to be an issue because wowza, what a debut for Utah football in 2025. This show is brought to you today and every day by Big Willie's, Utah's sports bar at 1717 South Main. A good chunk of you were out there watching the Utah football game at Big Willie's because it was a road game and not everybody made the trip to the Rose Bowl. You did the right thing. Taking in the delicious draft beers, the craft cocktails, the craft food menu. I got a couple texts and people saying that, hey, wow, this place is pretty good. Yeah, I told you it's pretty good. 1717 South Main for all of your sporting event needs. They've got lunch specials going on every single day. Go check them out. Tell them OC sent you. Big Willie's, presenting sponsor of the Sean O'Connell Show. As I was organizing my notes for this this first show after we had an actual Utah football game in 2025, I was like, you know what? Let's not drink the Kool-Aid too aggressively. Let's not spend too much time gassing up things and getting people overly excited. There's a long season ahead of us. And then I remembered that this is football season, baby, and I crumpled up my electronic notes that had me giving you reasonable takes. Big 12 champions in 2025, college football playoff team, Devin Dampier in New York City as a Heisman finalist. Let's go. I'm not just drinking the Kool-Aid right now. It is the kind of Kool-Aid that like a 7-year-old makes, where the sugar at the bottom creates a sedimentary layer that you have to keep shaking the cup because that's how sweet it is. You have never seen a sports first impression more favorable than what we saw from Jason Beck calling the offense for Utah football in week 1. I want you today to go home. I want you to grab your significant other. I want you to pick up your spouse, and I want you to say, you know what? I remember love at first sight when we met, our first date, the greatest first impression that could ever happen. I knew in that exact moment that I loved you. I knew that you would be the mother of my children, or I guess the father of my children. I knew that you would be my partner for life. I knew in that first word coming out of your sweet, sweet lips that my heart was yours forever. But I still was not as impressed with you on that first date as I am with Jason Beck after one game calling Utah football's offense. It's okay. Your spouse will understand. I have never seen someone do it that way. You have never had a first date go that well. You have never had a first day at work go that well. You have never showed up and met your birth father after adoption and had it go that well. That was absolutely clinical. A deep, deep understanding of what UCLA wanted to do defensively, the fact that you had the personnel to impose your will upon that defensive scheme, and while doing that, Jason Beck, while just confusing and confounding every player and coach wearing that powder blue and gold, Jason Beck was also sending a message to the Utah fan base, to his Utah football team, and most importantly, he was also sending a message to Kyle Whittingham and Morgan Scalley, because Morgan was involved in the hire as well, that you could not have done a better job in selecting someone to take over these play calling duties. I know the whole season's got to play out, and I told you from the beginning I don't expect it to be perfect. But when you talk about first impressions made, Jason Beck just gave you the gold standard, the master class on what you should aspire to anytime you're trying to make a first impression. Not only did he display a level of offensive wrinkle and creativity that Utah fans have been desperate to see, but simultaneously in the same game, he said, you know what, just to let you know, to set your mind at ease, Kyle Whittingham, that I actually don't need these 3 defensive players taking offensive snaps, and I don't need any trickeration or wrinkle or a jet sweep motion and things like that. I'm just going to remind you that I'm fully aware of the kind of offense you want to run if we get into a situation in a close game, if we face much better teams this year than UCLA, which Utah will. He said, I just want you to know, Coach, that I know the other way to do it. And he put together a 20-play, 10-minute drive that Kyle Whittingham probably dreamt about on Saturday night when he finally got home, snuggled in his bed about 4 a.m. to catch, 3 hours of sleep before getting up to work out. That entire sleep was just that drive on repeat. 20 plays. 9 minutes and 44 seconds chewed up off the clock. Just a smile on his face. Probably woke up fully refreshed even after 2.5 hours of sleep because of that drive. Jason Beck showed me, showed you, showed every Utah football red, crimson, dyed hair. He said, I know exactly what it's going to take to win in college football in 2025, but I'm going to give a nod to the president of operations over here. I'm going to let the CEO of this program, I'm going to get the guy whose statue is going to be outside of Rice-Eccles Stadium, I'm going to give him his flowers too, and I'm going to run a drive straight down the throats of this UCLA defense and improve to people and send a message to the Big 12 Conference, send a message to Utah football, send a message to football in general that the Utes are back. And we've got one of the best offensive lines in all of college football. We got a quarterback that's going to take 3 tacklers to bring down. We've got 2 solid running backs. We have the personnel we need and the scheme we need to compete for whatever prize is out there in 2025. Oh, my goodness. If you're looking for the reasonable take today, the pump the brakes on the excitement take today, I can't give it to you. I'm sorry. I should be more professional about this job. But instead, like I told you, I have ripped out not 1, but 2 Kool-Aid packets. Oh, yeah. All right? And then just dumping the teaspoons. Nope. Let's make it tablespoons of sugar. And you're stirring, and it's still overly sweet. 877-353-0700. Tell me how you're feeling as a Utah football fan. We'll make it a Hot Take Tuesday. Bring in whatever outlandish claim you want to make about this Utah football team, about this Utah football season. I'm ready for all of them. I watched the other games this weekend too, and let me tell you something. TCU last night showed us they're going to be a tough team to deal with in the conference this year. You saw some really good things from multiple teams in the Big 12 Conference. The parity that we promised you is absolutely going to be a thing. But, man, it is going to be one hell of a ride for Utah football. If they could put together anything close to that level of execution on a relatively consistent basis, they're going to have a chance to win every game this year. Fun show lined up for you on a Tuesday, which is serving as a Monday because of the long weekend. Hopefully everyone enjoyed their Labor Day. It's kind of the unofficial putting to bed of summer. And as much as I don't like that aspect of it, had a great weekend. Hopefully you did too. We have the Kyle Whittingham press conference. I'm going to play you here in about 30 seconds. We've got Ari Temkin. We've got Jeff Schwartz, and we've got Jerem Jordan for some red and blue. BYU had a great game this weekend as well. The level of competition was paltry at best, but BYU went out there and they did exactly what they're supposed to do. Can't ask for anything more than that. We will evaluate over the course of the week the Big 12 performances, but today we're going to stay mostly focused on your Utes and a great, fantastic, not quite flawless, but very pleasing to the eye type rollout of the new offense and the overall changes made in this Utah football program. Because we didn't give you the Kyle Whittingham presser yesterday live, because we were off, obviously, for the holiday, we have it for you. I'm going to give it to you right now. Here's Kyle Whittingham from Monday's press conference after his Utes start the season 1-0.
Okay. Obviously, a lot of positives to take away from our opening game on Saturday night into early Sunday morning down in the Rose Bowl. A lot of good things offensively. Ran the football well, threw it efficiently, converted third downs really well. Red zone, outstanding. Didn't turn the ball over, zero turnovers. And really never had any lulls in the offense. And we only punted one time. And other than that, we scored every time. Other than that, I think we had 10 possessions, 7 touchdowns, a field goal, and a punt and end of game, somewhere like that. So anyway, it was very positive, and it was good to see the offense executing the way they did for the full 60 minutes. Defense did some really good things as well. Played the run tough. Played the throw game really well. 50% completion percentage. Only gave up 220 total yards, or thereabouts. Maybe it was a little more than that. Played really well on third down, in addition, on defense. And really the success, in my opinion, of the entire game started at the line of scrimmage. We did a good job controlling the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And that was the biggest difference. Definitely had some things we can do better and things to work on. Tackling in the secondary was not as crisp as it needs to be, not as clean as it needs to be. Some special team errors, missed the first extra point, dropped a kickoff return and got pinned deep in our territory, mishit a few kickoffs. So there's things to work on there as well. So no shortage of things for us to address this week. But again, a good start to the season, and we just got to continue to work hard and focus from week to week, take them one at a time. So questions?
Justin. All right, this one's from Justin. After the best offensive performance in recent history, how are you going to improve tackling in the defensive secondary? What is the plan to improve?
Well, Coach Scally does a great job teaching it, first of all, him and Coach Shaw. They're the coaches back in the secondary. And I'm sure they'll have a plan this week to fortify that and get better at it. To be honest, we did not do a lot of tackling in fall camp by design. Wanted to keep everyone healthy, and so that has a little bit of something to do with it as well. But my guess is you'll see steady improvement in tackling as the season goes on. At least we hope so.
Coach, Smith Snow and Lander Barton, their usage was interesting and surprising to see Saturday night.
Why was it surprising? I told you guys it was coming.
You told us, but I guess.
Did you think I was lying?
The amount, I guess.
Well, Smith played 22 snaps of O. That's about what we had forecast. Lander about 10 snaps, and Benny maybe 5 to 7. So anyway, what's your point?
I was going to ask, is that something that will be determined week by week, matchup by matchup, their usage offensively and defensively?
Well, we plan on using them each and every week. How much is exactly as you mentioned. What the matchup was and what personnel groups they're in. Coach Beck typically goes into a game with 4, 5, or 6 personnel groups, and just depending on how much they're, how many of those groups they're involved in. But I thought it was really good production from those guys. Smith, 5 catches for 50 or 60 yards, and some carries as well. Lander caught the touchdown pass and actually blocked really well too. Lander, I'm convinced, could be one of the best tight ends in the country that was his full-time position. So he's a big plus. And then Benny did exactly what we hoped. He didn't have a lot of production on paper, but he did a great job of taking the top off the coverage and stretching the defense and opening some things up for other guys.
Kyle, walk me through just your thoughts on the wide receiver room right now, and how do you want to use, I guess, these next 2 games to establish a guy in that room at wide receiver 1 and maybe even wide receiver 2?
Well, I think we need to get Tobias a little more involved. He's a weapon for us, and you saw him catch a deep ball and then draw a PI on another deep ball, and that's really his thing. He seems to have a good knack for getting free up the field. He's also got a big catch radius, so we got to try to get him more involved. And otherwise, it's just you want more time, you want more production, play better in practice. That's how it is. I mean, you got to play your way into that. We're not just going to try to feature somebody if they haven't earned it. And not to say that they're not doing some good things in practice, but we feel like we've got the right guys on the field, and J.J. Buchanan is part receiver. He's kind of a hybrid, and then Smith Snowden's a receiver, and so I know he doesn't sit in that room full time, but moving forward, it would be nice to be able to have more production and emphasis placed on that. But again, it's got to be merited. You can't just hand out playing time and production. You got to earn it in practice.
Kyle, looking at the running back room, Parker and Rogers, we're pretty even in terms of their snaps on Saturday. How effective do you feel like they've been as a 1-2 punch in that opener, and do you kind of see that tandem approach going forward?
Well, first of all, I thought they both produced fairly well in the first game. We had, I think we were 5.3 a carry. We want to be over 5 yards a carry as a team. That's a standard that we've had for a long time. Right now, they're on equal footing. Both those guys are starters and are interchangeable, and so there really isn't one that's ahead of the other. In a game, or as the season plays out, if one gets the hot hand and becomes more productive, then we'll lean that way and give that guy more carries, more time. But as of this moment, they're again 1 and 1A, and so they're both doing a good job. Both did a good job in the one game, and they blocked really well too. I don't know if you saw that the first play Smith had, Wayshawn really threw a nice block on the perimeter to free him up, and that's something the receivers I thought did good all game long, and particularly the tight ends as well, is blocking, and everybody had the urgency to fit up on a block and wasn't just being a spectator. We had guys really actively blocking in the secondary and on the perimeter.
Good morning, Coach.
Hey, PK.
This Saturday, Coach McBride is going to go into the Ring of Honor.
Uh-huh.
And I was wondering if you could speak to what Coach McBride has meant to the University of Utah football program, and then also what he's meant to you individually.
Coach Mack was responsible for the resurgence of Utah football. Did a phenomenal job recruiting. Got really good players into the program. Masterful recruiter. If you just say what is Coach Mack's strength, it was recruiting. And in college, that's the most important aspect of your job. So you can say he was the best at what was the most important. He had a great rapport with his players. Players loved him. Passionate coach. Loves the game. Still coaches to this day. I believe he's still working with kids in the community and helping out where he can. So he's continuing to be effective. But he really put Utah football back on the map, like I said. And for me personally, gave me my first opportunity in Division I football. I'm forever grateful for that. I got my start here at Utah. Came from right up the road at Idaho State, a 1AA program, and so he was instrumental in my path and coaching path, and very well deserved, obviously deserving of his Ring of Honor award that he's going to be, or induction that he's going to be getting this week, and he's meant so much to the community. Not just Utah football and the university, but so active in the community, and he's a guy that is constantly giving and has done that all his life, and like I said, I'm eternally grateful for him and what he did for me. How's that? That good? Good bite? Okay. All right.
Back here, Kyle.
Hey.
You mentioned you thought Lander could be the best tight end in the country if he did that.
I didn't say the best tight end in the country. One of the best tight ends.
Okay, one of the best tight ends.
There's
in
some
the
really
country.
good tight ends out there. Yeah.
There are. And given how many good linebackers you have you thought of giving him a lot more snaps at tight end?
Well, it's still a work in progress. He's still a vital part of the defense. Yeah, we do have some depth at linebacker. There's no doubt, and that's a work in progress and conversation that we've had for the last several weeks. And the short answer is yes. We probably need to get involved a little bit more, get him involved a little bit more on the offense. Now, Dallin Bentley really played well. I don't know if you honed in on him specifically, but he blocked well, he caught the ball well, had a really nice game. And like I said, J.J. Buchanan did some good things for us as well. And Hunter Andrews is another guy that is getting playing time at that spot. So from week to week, as we already talked about, depending on the matchups, my guess is you will see his contribution on offense go up in the next ensuing weeks.
I'm curious to hear.
Did we not give out the free pizza? Because there's hardly anybody here today. They must all be in promo. Okay.
I'm curious your thoughts on kind of the value of playing an FCS opponent. Is it kind of a chance to get a better look at some of these second and third stringers in a real game situation?
Well, first of all, I don't overlook anybody. I don't care what level they are or what their record is. As soon as you do that, you find yourself getting smacked in the face. And so we don't approach it any differently in our preparation and our how we go about our business. And we expect our guys to work and focus just as if it was whoever we played. It doesn't matter. And so in that respect, the preparation remains the same. The process remains the same. But you hope if you get a chance to, especially early in the season, to get a look at some of the younger guys. You hope that happens, but that's getting ahead of things in our opinion. If we are able to take control of the game and get a lead, then it would be great to see some of these younger guys and see what they can do.
So heading into this last weekend, there was questions surrounding your outside corners, Scooby and Blake. How would you assess their performance at UCLA over the weekend?
Really good. I think they held up well. No balls over our head. We dodged a bullet or two. There's some guys open up the field that they missed the throw. But I thought for a first game, those guys did a nice job, especially Blake Cotton. He's a good tackler, and he's not, he doesn't turn things down. Sometimes you get DBs that are a little reluctant to go up and mix it up. But he demonstrated some physicality, did some good things in coverage. Of course, Smith Snowden's a premier cover guy, and Scooby played a lot of football for us last year, and so I thought those guys did a nice job. Jackson Benny did a really good job at the nickel. That's actually the toughest assignment, is the slot corner. He's got the most on his plate. He's also responsible for run game fits and blitzing off the edge on occasion. So I thought Jackson did a really nice job as well.
Kyle, you said after the game on Saturday that you had talked with members of Colorado staff just about Travis Hunter.
Didn't say I had. We had.
Oh, you
yeah,
guys had,
I didn't
yeah.
specifically. Yeah.
What were those conversations like? Who were you guys?
I didn't have them. Our sports scientists and that collaborated and talked about. It was more from the science side rather than coaching side, but just how how you handle it, and particularly during the week. How to what kind of, I don't want to say concessions, but adjustments or modifications do you make for those players that are playing or projected to play. Like I said, Smith only played 47 total snaps, so that wasn't even really a typical week of just playing defense. That was a very low number. But and not just from Colorado, but we've called around other places as well, and again, just practice load, conditioning, weight room modifications, just the whole week, the whole work week, what we can do to make sure they're ready and don't get them asking them to do things that they just physically can't do because they're worn out.
Coach, your defense had a 60% pressure rate on Nico Iamaleava and a 60% pressure rate with just your base rush. When you're able to do that with just 4, get that sort of pressure, what does that do for your defense?
That's big for a defense coordinator to be able to generate a pass rush with just 4. It opens up all kinds of coverage combinations and coverage opportunities up the field, and you're not hanging yourself out and exposing yourself to big plays by bringing a bunch of pressure all the time. And so I think any DC in the country will tell you the same thing. If you can get good pressure with 4, then you've got something going there.
I'll always take pizza, Coach.
Well,
But
let's go next week.
this is an easy one, but was there anything about your team that surprised you?
Surprised me. I'm going to say no. Way back, this team's work ethic and focus back in January and February in the off-season conditioning, and March and April with spring ball, June and July with summer conditioning, fall camp. These guys they get after it. They got great focus, great concentration. The work ethic is outstanding, and so no, I don't think there was any major surprises. No.
Merriweather was open deep a few times, and you mentioned caught one, and one was
PI.
pass interference penalty. But it seemed like he had to wait on the ball. And I'm just wondering, is that a timing thing? Maybe
Yeah.
thrown late, or is he that fast? Or?
Both. He's his big stride. It's he's going faster than he may look like he's going, and then Devin just underthrew him a couple times, and it's just a matter of continuing to get that chemistry. He wasn't with us in spring ball, was he? I don't think he was. I think he just showed up. I can't remember. I'm getting old. But anyway, yeah, it's just a matter of timing that out better and getting the ball laid out there and for him to run underneath. That's it? All righty. Thanks, guys.
Kyle Whittingham's press conference from yesterday. Good questions from the media. A couple of those about the wide receiving situation, which after game one is still, I suppose, a hanging question mark. We'll get to that a little bit later on in the show. We got to take a quick break here because we've got Ari Temkin set to join us, Big 12 Insider. At noon, it'll be Jeff Schwartz. And are we getting Scott Mitchell today too? And Jerem Jordan?
Yeah. So Scott and Ari, usually Monday guests, so they moved to today because first day of the week. Weekend reaction, and then we got our regular Tuesday guest, Jeff Schwartz, and the red and blue with Jerem Jordan, although they kind of flipped. Jerem Jordan at 1:30, Jeff at noon. So, yeah, should be fantastic show. Great guests to react to what happened with Utah and the rest of college football last weekend. How about 3-0 for the big in-state schools, OC? Aggies, BYU, Utah. I mean, that's awesome.
Look,
way to show out Utah.
Shout out, by the way, to Bronco Mendenhall and the Aggies. We knew BYU was going to win this game. We were very, very confident that Utah was going to win this game. Utah State brought in like 47 new players and found a way. Now, UTEP they're not world beaters, but they have a former 5-star recruit as their starting quarterback. And
they look decent too, like for UTEP not being a team that you ever have expectations for. I'm watching them, like they look like they could be pretty good. What conference is UTEP in even? Are they? I don't even remember. But whatever conference they're in now, I'm like they look like they might have a pretty good year this year. So an impressive win for Utah State.
Conference USA
Conference
is
USA.
UTEP Miners. Okay. Along with
shout out to Texas Western, Coach Haskins,
Sam Houston, Kennesaw State, all those. All right. In any case, 3-0 for the big in-state universities.
Bryson Barnes, by the way, looked really good for Utah State.
Of course he did, because that's our pig farmer.
Just last year he looked a lot more like the guy that, and he was only kind of the starter for them. He kind of switcit's off between he and was it Hillstead with them last year,
which I think is a big problem to do to a quarterback.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for Bryson Barnes, it's kind of been his fate in college football, where they never want to like fully commit to, this dude's our starter, because everyone's always looking over the fence when you have a 5'11", former 1A walk-on type guy. You're always looking for the greater potential that you could, farm out somewhere else. And you don't need to do that.
I see what you did.
He's a good enough player, especially for that Utah State level.
Yeah,
he's more than enough.
He finally looked like a guy. Like I was about to say, last year he looked like he was running for his life a few times, or a lot of the time, like he did that last season at Utah when he was thrust into the starting role, kind of last minute. But I feel like, hey, go figure. You give a guy a full off season that he knows he's going to be the starter, and your game plan with him in mind, he looks a lot more comfortable. So good for Bryson Barnes.
Taking a quick one here. We come back with Ari Temkin, Big 12 Insider. Lot to react to. Yes, he'll have thoughts on the Utes, but also TCU, BYU. What happened to Baylor? We'll get to all of it on the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network. What a weekend of college football. We welcome Ari Temkin, Big 12 Insider, Big 12 Radio on TuneIn, friend of the program, to digest the full official opening weekend. You got a couple of teams in the conference now that are 2-0. A bunch of other teams that we figured would be 1-0. Maybe a surprise loss here or there. Let's talk about all of it with Ari. Ari, welcome. How are you, sir?
I'm great, man. How are you?
Doing awesome. Did you enjoy your Labor Day / week 1 of college football weekend?
Yeah, it was spectacular. And, I was up very late Saturday evening here in the Central Time Zone, and I couldn't help but think about UOC and all the stuff we were talking about this offseason about Devin Dampier, which at least in 1 week went right out the window because for my money, and there were a lot of good ones, he was the best quarterback performance of week 1 across the Big 12.
Well, let's start there. Let's talk about that. There's all that, trepidation. There's the optimism, but kind of nervous optimism when you bring in a guy from a group of 5 school and he brings his coordinator with him, and it's like, okay, is it going to translate at this Power 4 level? Is it going to translate against a Big Ten opponent, a former Pac-12 foe? And whatever test you were wondering, he passed, and Jason Beck also passed with absolutely flying colors. More elusive than I think a lot of people thought he would be. He was pretty dialed in on the throws as well. As Coach Witt said, maybe underthrew a couple of deep balls. But for a first performance in a Utah football uniform, I don't think there was a lot more you could have asked.
Yeah, and in command, like in comparing just to other performances, like Rocco Beck completed 95% of his passes. Nico Marchiol also had like a 90% completion percentage. But like for me, what stood out about him was he was just in complete control. We knew that there would be familiarity, obviously, with this offense coming over with him, but he looked like a veteran in it. It seemed like every play he made was the right he when it called to run, he ran. When it didn't, he didn't. When he He was poised. He was in complete control. It looked like a game that we would expect to see from a quarterback like this deep into the season. And again, I know that the offensive coordinator, it's still the same OC, but the familiarity it seemed like he had with his teammates that weren't with him at New Mexico last year, I think that's what stood out more than anything. Is just he looked like a Rocco Becht who's been in the same offense with the same players for the most part for 3 years.
Yeah, great debut for Devin. Great debut for Jason Beck calling the plays. And, what did you think of the fact that 3 defensive players got touches, including a couple with touchdowns?
Well, and that I think is the thing to watch for moving forward because, wide receiver is continually going to be kind of a question mark for this program. And, I think coming out, like, it still is. Like, how much are we going to see Smith Snowden on offense? But that was a lot of fun. I mean, what did he have, 9 touches for 70 yards and a touchdown to go along with 7 tackles? Lander Barton also had 7 tackles and had that touchdown catch. So, I loved utilizing both of those guys in the offense. My question is this going to be irregular? Are we going to expect to see both of those guys line up as playmakers on offense? And does that, over time, take away from their ability to be effective on defense? Because, obviously the key – I'm sure that Whittingham won't want to approve of their usage on offense if it does have diminishing returns on defense. But look, time will tell, and that's something that you've got to experiment with a little bit. Like, I'm not sure that Colorado knew exactly how much they could get from Travis Hunter in terms of total snaps. Like, I'm sure if you ran it through, you would have thought, like, no way a human being can do that, and yet he did it. And I'm not trying to say that, like, Smith, Snowden, and Lander Barton should both get as many touches or snaps as Travis Hunter did, but they're obviously huge pieces on defense, and they're guys that can obviously be contributors on offense, and especially given that there's still question marks about the receiver position, I think getting those guys involved is a huge plus.
You can't have a Utah football conversation at all without talking about the offensive line. And in postgame and in this press conference, Kyle Whittingham gave those guys their flowers. Before anyone else, said set the tone, set the line of scrimmage, dominated. They blocked their way to 5 yards a carry, 286 yards on the ground for Utah football, almost no pressure on Devin Dampier. And when he did feel pressure, he just vanishes because that's what he's capable of. Did the offensive line live up to the billing for you?
Yeah, and that's, as we talk about the poise and veteran savvy of Devin Dampier, it was hard not to look at how dominant that offensive front was. And look, they dominated on both lines of scrimmage. And I think that's noteworthy because, certainly we expected it for defense, but it was sort of a question mark from a personnel standpoint. But, if there's one overarching theme from week 1, it was in what games did the Big 12 look overmatched along the offensive line and what games did they not? I would say the Baylor-Auburn game was a good example of they just had dudes up front that were bigger than your dudes. And that's obviously a concern when you're talking about the Big 12 relative to the SEC and to the Big 10. I would say last night, TCU, they were bigger up front on both lines of scrimmage. While a lot of things happened in that game, to me, it started with TCU's ability to be physical in their run game, and that was all up front. And, yeah, Utah's offensive line, it was like an NFL offense. And it is an NFL offensive line, but it even was magnified. I don't know if UCLA is that bad, but I would say that was more than anything what stood out about that game was just how good Utah looked along the offensive line. And again, in a weekend in which you watched Georgia Tech run all over Colorado and you watched Auburn run all over Baylor, I think it stood out because we thought coming into this year there'd be some strengths from an offensive line standpoint across the league. I thought Baylor was one of those teams, and it might still could be. It's just maybe that Auburn is that good up front. But yeah, I think that was without a doubt the huge piece to the first weekend. Offensive line play, winning up front, dictating the terms and your running game, to me was week 1. Even though there was some great quarterback performances, like Baylor got absolutely destroyed on the ground. Georgia Tech destroyed Colorado on the ground. TCU destroyed North Carolina last night on the ground, and Utah the same in their game against UCLA.
Since we're making reference to all these other teams in the Big 12 conference, Utah's getting their flowers. National media is saying, hey, the Utes are back, and we'll see how it plays out. You know, we're trying to temper expectations at least a little bit while we also guzzle the Kool-Aid. But I saw other at TCU I thought looked great. I thought that, Iowa State proved again that they're a team that's going to have to be reckoned with. Arizona State didn't look that great against the Northern Arizona team. So what were your other Big 12 takeaways from this past weekend?
Well, and just looking at the FCS opponents this weekend, like the preseason favorites in the FCS, South Dakota, and so that I think plays up to what Iowa State did. I mean, they came back and really whooped a South Dakota team that, was pretty highly ranked in the preseason FCS poll. Northern Arizona is another team there, though I think probably a little bit too much yardage to be giving up if you're Arizona State against that type of an opponent, even if they are, a top 25 FCS opponent. The one that was shocking was that from a preseason expectation standpoint, North Dakota is a team that is sort of a middle-of-the-pack FCS team. And, I mean, they were in position to beat Kansas State at Kansas State. And, again, like this is not a FCS favorite by any stretch of the imagination, North Dakota. And, I mean, they found themselves down 10 late in this game, came all the way back and held a lead before – basically K-State had to save them. Their defense got a stop. Avery Johnson went down the field and scored, and then they got another stop. But, I mean, it's hard to look at that and not, I mean, if people thought K-State was a favorite to win the Big 12 and Utah wasn't, it feels like after 2 games for K-State and 1 for Utah that you could flip those. I was certainly way too low on Iowa State for what they've done the first 2 weeks. And again, the South Dakota team that's very highly ranked to the FCS preseason poll, they just absolutely destroyed them. Rocco backed, I mean, and I said this at media days, like as much as Brock Purdy's already done in the NFL, like Rocco Becht has already put together a better college career than Brock Purdy has, which says a lot about Rocco Becht. The dude is unflappable. He's so polished. He's so good. I think we should really reevaluate our ceiling for that team because they're just anything's possible when you're that good at quarterback. And even though they lost their 2 big weapons at receiver, they've got 2 tight ends over the middle of the field that are 6'7", 260 pounds, and Gabe Burkle and Ben Bramer. And those are 2 guys that, I mean, they represented the 3 passing touchdowns that Rocco had this last week. And I think those are guys that are going to become huge contributors for them. So, yeah, I mean, I think just like overall, K-State, like their fans are none too pleased with their start to the year with the loss in Ireland to Iowa State and then coming back and barely beating a middle of the pack FCS team in North Dakota. Iowa State looking great and winning that game in Ireland, then coming back and beating a pretty good FCS opponent. Now, we'll see what happens this week against Iowa. But it feels like just the programs of those 2 have changed and flipped. And I mean, if you saw what Iowa's quarterback did, the South Dakota State transfer, I mean, he basically had 44 yards passing and a touchdown against Albany week 1. So I know that's pretty standard for Iowa, but that doesn't bode well for this Iowa State game week 3. And those are, I mean, just some of the kind of, I would think, big picture takeaways from week 1. I mean, and then of course what happened last night. It's funny because TCU complained after the game about all the credit that or all of the attention that Bill Belichick was getting for North Carolina. And it's funny because all of the attention is towards Belichick. Like this game isn't about TCU winning it. It's more about Belichick's in over his head. He's, this is going to be a lot harder than he thought. And I think a big part of that is because people are not understanding how good TCU is. And, that should really be the takeaway here. TCU was number 1 in the Big 12 in recruiting rankings in 2 of the last 3 years, and they were number 2 the year they weren't number 1. Like, this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. This is one of the most talented rosters in the Big 12. If not for what Texas Tech did this offseason, TCU would be the most talented roster in the NFL, in the Big 12. And so I think, we saw that last night on full display. Like, their offensive front, their defensive line, they're very disruptive. I think, a couple of years ago, it was just a disaster on the from a defensive standpoint. They did a total switch in Andy Avalos' defense, and this year it looks to be a lot better and more opportunistic. So, yeah, I mean, I would say those are my big picture to week 1 takeaways.
The new top 25 poll is going to come out in the next 15 or so minutes here. Will it reflect more respect for a Big 12 conference? Will it reflect any change on opinions on any of these teams? I imagine, maybe maybe Utah's in it. What do you think happens in the Big 12's appearance with the top 25 poll coming out soon?
Yeah, I would think that both Utah and TCU should be ranked. Utah because they were in the others receiving votes category, and I mean, look, they were expected to beat UCLA, but they absolutely beat UCLA like a drum. I mean, the score wasn't as close as the game might indicate. It was not really that close at all, basically in the second half. And I mean, I'd say the same for TCU. We're like, sure, they were expected to win, but I mean, they completely and utterly demolished those two teams. So I think, those Utah and TCU should both be in the top 25 this week. I'm not sure that Kansas State should be or will be. I'm also very curious to see if Florida State is ranked higher than Alabama is this week. And should Auburn be ranked higher than Alabama is this week? I mean, I'm fine with there being a preseason poll, and I know, OC, we've talked about this. Like, they should just reset everything after week one. I don't know why. Because Alabama was in the preseason rankings,
yeah.
Because their recruiting rankings were so good, they should still be in the top 10. Like, they're probably going to fall, I would imagine, to as low as 12 or 13. And there's just no way after watching them week one, they're one of the 12 or 13 best teams in the country. So, and look, I mean, we can acknowledge that we may have in the preseason missed some things. That's why I think they should just totally reevaluate how they do it, but they won't. So, I'm sure Alabama won't fall as nearly as much as they should. I'm sure Auburn, Utah, and TCU won't be as high as they probably should. But we'll see.
Apropos of nothing Big 12-wise, but look, I'm a big Kalen DeBoer fan. I thought he was great before we saw him in Power 5 football, and then obviously he did remarkable things at Washington, took him all the way to a national championship, and then there were people back when he took the job at Alabama who questioned the wisdom of being the guy to follow the guy.
Right.
Is he regretting that decision right now, do you think? If we got the truth serum and, the interrogation light on Kalen DeBoer, is he thinking, I should have stayed at Washington? Because they would have stepped up and paid him comparable to what Alabama is giving him.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. And I'm sure Washington would take him back today, as I'm sure Arizona would take back their head coach today. And then if you're Alabama, where do you go from there? I'm sure Kalen DeBoer took it for the challenge of it all. And I'm with you. I'm a Kalen DeBoer fan, but you just cannot be the guy that follows the guy. You want to be the guy that follows the guy that follows the guy. And, I mean, you just none of us can comprehend the expectations for Alabama football and just the insane entitlement, I guess would be the best word to describe it, as from Alabama fans, because why wouldn't they be? They have won seemingly all of the titles. They've been the team and the program in college football, and they just don't lose those games like they've been losing under Kalen DeBoer. And everywhere else, you could lose 2 games and it's a great season. But at Alabama, that's a complete disaster. And if you lose 2 games in 2 consecutive seasons, which is 4 games over 2 seasons, that's an unbelievable disaster. So, that's where, if you're Kalen DeBoer, it's did you really think through all of this? Did you really think that you basically have to go undefeated, otherwise they're going to question every move you make? And if you lose 1 game, that's cool. But, if you lose 2 games and then you do 2 games in back-to-back seasons, forget about it. And, all anybody can point to now is Saban would have never let any of this happen. And, you could have seen this coming from a mile away, regardless of how good of a coach DeBoer is, because people are only comparing this to Saban's program. There's no thought of the type of program that DeBoer had at Washington and the success that he had. They're just, you see all the reaction this week about the players don't care and they're not trying and there's no accountability for them. And it's we're just probably looking a little bit further and closer at that because it was so buttoned up at Alabama to the degree we've never seen before. Saban won at a level we've never seen before, ever. So you're comparing it to something that just doesn't exist. And so he had a ton of success at Washington, probably running his program that way, but nobody ever thought to look that closely. It's just not going to fly here. It's crazy.
It's crazy, and it's college football, and that's why we love it. Ari, you're the man. Love talking to you every week. Looking forward to the next conversation. Thank you, sir.
You're the best, OC. Take care, brother. Be well.
Ari Temkin, Big 12 Radio over on TuneIn, does a great job covering all of college football. And you know what? We need a new feature here on the Sean O'Connell Show. The regret meter in college football, all right? Because there's so much movement coaching personnel-wise, but now player personnel also. I couldn't help but think, as I was watching Nico Iamaleava age 10 years between the first quarter and the fourth quarter against the University of Utah. He's a great player. I mean, he's incredibly elusive. He was extending plays and getting out of pressure situations that, honestly, it's probably making film session for Utah football players today a little bit uncomfortable because that pass rush should have had him down at least 3 more times and probably as many as 5 more times in that game. But Nico is just that strong. He's that elusive. And that's a guy who left Tennessee, a college football playoff level program, to join UCLA, who's going to be, I think, like the 17th best Big Ten team this year. The regret meter spiking for Nico, spiking for Bill Belichick, who's just grumbling as his 24-year-old girlfriend walks up to him during a game on the sideline. And then, of course, Kalen DeBoer. You left Washington, where you had created magic and brought a team back to its glory days. And like Ari just said, you took the job to follow the god of college football, Nick Saban. Ouch. Nick Saban, I think I saw a stat. He was like 64-4 against unranked teams at Alabama in that long tenure, and already Kalen DeBoer has lost 4 times to unranked teams. Only his second season as an Alabama head coach. Regret meter pinging everywhere. We got to make that a thing. Sean O'Connell Show on Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
Dampier in the backfield with the carry. Rogers. 2 receivers left, 1 to the right-hand side. Dampier moves a man across the formation. That's Smith Snowden. Smith's got it, bouncing to the outside. Now back to the inside, to the 5, to the 4, to the 3, to the 2, to the 1. That's a touchdown! Smith Snowden made 3 men miss at the 5, cut it back inside, and found pay dirt in the UCLA end zone. It's a Utah touchdown.
Bill Riley on the call, offensive touchdown number 1 in the Smith Snowden career. Here's a hot take Tuesday for you. Smith Snowden's going to have a more impactful offensive year at the University of Utah than defensive year.
Ooh.
We talked about him all offseason long.
Certainly was the case in week 1.
He's an all-conference level guy. He's going to be one of the leaders on this defense. That's maybe true. He is dynamic when you put the ball in his hands. And I think that they are better equipped to deal with him leaving some on the table, so to speak, defensively. You're going to need him on offense. It's going to get tougher. And Smith Snowden is a weapon.
Is that, just question for you, is that a reflection of his position? Like Lander Barton, all due respect to our press conference, our great media, who asked after 1 touchdown catch, 1 catch in the game, should he play full-time offense, Kyle Whittingham? Okay. That guy, him at linebacker, you need him a lot more at linebacker than you do at tight end, obviously.
Yeah.
And that position, you need great linebackers more than you probably need great nickel corners, right? Is that part of the equation for you, or am I completely off base with that?
I don't think you. I think you need a great nickel corner is massively important in today's world of college football, and Smith can still be one, but. Like Jackson Benny's a really good football player.
And
here's what I don't want.
He fills that pretty well, but he also played some offense.
Here's what I don't want. I don't want Jackson Benny, if he's taking over Smith Snowden's reps on defense, I don't want him playing offense. I know it's good, like he's a dynamic player, and one of the great stories on this team.
He made some great plays on offense, too.
Former walk-on, right? Like Jackson Benny is that dude. It's wonderful to see that kind of guy have a success, but I don't want them having like 3 Travis Hunters out there.
Yeah.
Travis Hunter was an alien, first of all. And
or even 3 Sione Vakis, who was not quite as much of as Travis Hunter, but more of these guys.
I see this, the Smith Snowden experiment, I see evolving into the Sione Vaki thing, where he's an awesome defensive player. Sione Vaki was a big thumper. He was a great defensive player, okay? Sione Vaki is in the NFL as what?
Running back.
He's an offensive player at the highest level of football. And the NFL decided he's a better offensive player than he is defensive player. And Utah needed Sione to be more of an offensive weapon than they needed him to be a defensive weapon, because defensive depth is typically better at the University of Utah than offensive depth is right now. And Smith Snowden is right now that. And by the way, we haven't even seen Hunter Andrews, who's a former defensive player that they've converted to be that Swiss
big
Army knife.
Thumping run he had, but
it's just like Smith Snowden's going to be a better offensive player than defensive player, and that's not a commentary about how good he is at defense, because he's a really good defensive player. It's just that he is. I forgive me, Smith. I wasn't familiar with your game. I did not realize he was that dynamic with the ball in his hand.
When did Shaq take over as host of the Sean O'Connell show?
Oh, man. Smith Snowden, you know what? Wheels like that, he better get some Big O tires on those wheels. Big O Tires has specials. I'm talking $50 instant savings, $100 instant savings, $150 instant savings on name brand tires going on right now. Multiple locations up and down the Wasatch Front. Find your nearest Big O Tires. Let them take care of you. Full warranties. And when you tell them OC sent you, they're going to hook you up with fast service. They're going to get those tires changed out in about an hour. It's always great to just take a lunchtime off of work. You know, I'm going to go grab a sandwich. I'm going to go over to Big O Tires. I'll take my laptop with me, boss. So while they're changing my tires, I can get a little bit of work done. I can answer a few emails. Big O Tires, official tire sponsor of the Sean O'Connell Show. All right, Jeff Schwartz was watching a full slate of college football on the weekend. I guarantee you he didn't watch the Utah game live, but he went back and did his film study on it. It's too late for him on the East Coast. And this is one of the offensive lines Jeff Schwartz was most excited about. We'll see if they passed his eyeball test in week 1. Sean O'Connell Show continues. Hour 2 begins with Jeff Schwartz next on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Hour number 2 here on the Sean O'Connell Show. We welcome in Jeff Schwartz, longtime NFL lineman, former Oregon Duck, offensive line expert. He's going to help us evaluate whether or not Utah's offensive line lived up to the hype, the offseason hype, in their Week 1 performance against UCLA. Jeff Schwartz, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing good. I just am excited. Football's back. We have a whole week of college football to talk about. Look forward, by the way, to next week already. And NFL starts on Thursday. And There are many times I miss doing the show with you, but there's some topics that, like, I got dunked on by a Cal wide receiver on Twitter. Like, there are just so many things that happened this weekend. Mike Gundy's stuff yesterday that just would have been, like, full segments, hours. I wish I had someone to talk to, instead of nobody, essentially, the internet.
You were with the family at Autzen Stadium this weekend for Oregon's opener.
Yeah. So, my wife's first time in basically a college football home game. She has been to 3 college football games before, okay? Cal, Oregon in 2008, where it poured rain the entire game, okay? And I was on the sidelines with the Oregon fans. She had the only working poncho, which is kind of funny. There were just no ponchos available in, like, the Bay Area. It rained the entire game, okay? She was been in that game. She's been to Oregon, Georgia, at the Georgia Dome, and we don't have to rehash what happened in that one. That's for those in the know. She didn't make it the whole game, and then we went last year to Cal Wake Forest for work. We were in a box for her work because their hospital system. Some of her teammates at the hospital system work for Wake, right? And that was like a team bonding event. I'll tell you what. Cal Wake Forest on a Friday night in November, that gets the blood going. That was like the best game I've ever seen. I don't think there was one Cal fan there. Not one. I didn't see one. We sat in a box. The food was terrible. It was just like, you know me. I love those events where I just hang out with a bunch of people and talk. That's it. Those are only 3 games she'd ever been to. So this was the full thing, man. It was walk over the stadium, over the river. You get to Autzen Stadium, you go into the indoor facility, the Mo, and you drink, and the kids. There's plenty of opportunity for the kids to just run around. They ran around for an hour in the Mo. There's like kids set up and everything. And my daughter bought that giant cowboy hat, which is like so Emerson Schwartz. We got to go on the field before the game, and even stuff like between the players doing their warm-ups and coming back out in pads. The kids like ran around the field and threw a football. One of the equipment guys threw a ball to them. Like, they had the best time. I got good club seats, and we went through the tradition of shout, all those things. And she had a great time, which is hard for her to admit any time that. And the worst part, Sean, the worst or best part is I was in charge of the whole trip. I booked the flights. I booked the hotel. I got the tickets, like everything, right? And she 100% thought I was going to ruin the whole thing. It was going to be like a complete disaster. There was zero faith that I was going to do this correctly. Zero faith. And she won't admit it, but I can see the look on her face. Like, she thought it was going to be, I didn't get tickets till like Tuesday because I was talking to the AD and stuff like that. Not the AD, but it's just like, it just takes time sometimes to get like the ticket situation set up, right? Like, sure. And she just thought that it was just going to be a wreck. Like, she just thought it was going to be the worst time ever. And so, what a great time. And look, Oregon, they do such a good job with the former players. Dan Lanning just seems real genuine. And that's important, I think. Like, obviously the bravado and, he knows we're good and whatnot, but he just does I think he's genuinely a nice person. And that really shines through when you go see the program.
Well, I'm glad you had fun. And the only downside of attending a game live is that then you have to play more catch up.
Yes.
Seeing the rest of the stuff.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So you had to play catch up. I know that you watched at least the important parts of Utah's performance against UCLA. And my question for you is, did the Utah offensive line perform up to your expectation?
I think they did. I caught most of the first half of that game. First quarter. It was 20-0. Right? I went to bed and it was 20-0, which I think was the end of the first quarter. And so, look, I was high on Utah as one of my best bets for the week. I liked what they are. We talked about this, right, this offseason. And they lived up to the hype. At times, I think it's first game. Sometimes there's a little bit of struggles to keep your base and keep your footing and whatnot. I thought Utah's offensive line did a great job of that. You rushed the ball really, really well. The only thing that I would say that is a slight concern holistically is I just don't like a quarterback running that much. There were some plays during that game where Dan Pierre, I'm like, just go down, dude. Like, the 2 yards is not worth it. Just go down, avoid contact. And because, obviously the offense is going to be a lot set around his ability to move. And that's my only concern is when you rush the ball that much, you take some of those hits, is can you hold up over the long term? And otherwise, I liked everything I saw from Utah.
The rest of the Big 12 conference, I mean, TCU was front and center last night in Belichick's debut and just mollywopped the Tar Heels. And, you know, like the new AP poll out, giving a little bit more respect to the University of Utah and to the Big 12 conference. Do you think that that the conference, I guess, showed that they can hang for the rest of this year? I know week one is only so much, but
yeah, yes. I mean, I just think Utah's good. So like Utah to me is the sort of the cream of the crop, and obviously we'll see what Iowa State can do this weekend against Iowa. ASU goes to Mississippi State. That feels like a low key like upset spot. Like that's gonna be a really tough game for Arizona State. Scalaboo was just so much of their offense last season. Kansas State, obviously, you know, pretty close win there. I think they would love to play that game a little bit better. Texas Tech looks good. Obviously, they played nobody, but they dominated. So I think there's a lot of really good teams as far as, you know, playoff caliber teams. Can you beat a Big Ten, a top Big Ten or SEC team? I still think Utah's that team because, look, the thing about it that's so important is if you can tell me my offensive line can block and my defense can defense, that you're in every game, Sean. Right? You're in every game. Every game. A couple things break your way, a couple things go right, and all of a sudden you've won that game. So that to me just gives Utah really a leg up on a lot of these teams. A lot of teams just don't have that capability to block and tackle the way Utah does.
We talked a lot about Travis Hunter and his dual usage at the University of Colorado, and 3 guys for the University of Utah that are listed in the depth chart as defensive players, that are primarily defensive players, were playing offense. And, you know, Smith Snowden got 22 snaps. He got 9 touches, scored a touchdown. Lander Barton had the 1 catch for a touchdown on, I think, about 8 or 9 snaps. Dual usage for guys that are that important to your defense. What do you think?
I don't like it. Why?
Well, Smith, I think, is going to evolve into actually more of an offensive weapon than a slot corner this year. I think that what we saw from him in week 1, if that's an indication of his natural instincts with the ball in his hand, like he is this year's kind of Britton Covey. And I think offensively you might need it. Maybe you don't, and if you don't, then let him index on the defensive side of the ball. Lander, that's a better question as to like why. I think that it, just as much as anything, is just to show that he's one of the best overall players in the conference and in the country and help out his whatever. But I like look, Lander's going to be an NFL linebacker. He's not going to be an NFL tight end. Is he capable of being an NFL tight end if that was the position that he had played since, you know, he was 5 years old? Yeah, sure. But you know, it sounds like this is going to be kind of how much they're used all season long on the offensive side of the ball.
Do you need that much help at tight end?
I don't know if you do. Like they love this young kid, J.J. Buchanan, who's a freshman. Dallin Bentley's been waiting and has put in the work, and I think is a good player. So I don't know if you do, and it might just be that Freddie Whittingham, Kyle's brother, who is the tight end coach and who's done a great job developing tight ends, especially in recent years at the University of Utah, has wanted Jackson Barton to be in his tight end room for years, and it might just be as simple as that. Like, hey, this guy can help us. Let me use him a few plays.
Yeah, I think it's just very hard to pull it off. I think Travis Hunter was a unicorn, and that it's just going to be difficult to do that, like as your base, right, of what your team can be. So that's my concern, Sean. It's not that I don't think that the players are good enough to do it. It's just that, like, the more reps, the more things can go bad, the more injuries. And for a team that's been so beat up over the years with injuries, it just concerns me to have guys playing both ways, especially when you might not actually need them to do it.
So I want to ask you about this. Deshaun Foster, the head coach at UCLA, his soundbite to the press after this game, after he had watched the film, was like, hey, we were actually pretty close. We were closer. Now, I'm going to not think about the Bruins again for the rest of the year after this game, but I was blown away by that. I know that you don't want to go out publicly and trash your team, and I know that you want to, like, be positive, especially outward facing, but you played the game at the highest level for some really good coaches and for good programs. To me, that was a disconnect. If he's actually telling his team, like, hey, guys, you were this close to actually winning a game like that when they were getting dominated on both lines of scrimmage. Your thoughts on how to approach your team or even comments about your team after a performance like that?
Well, you're not this close if you lose by 33.
Correct.
Right? That's what it was. So that's actually pretty concerning. I think you want honesty is the best policy here, right? And maybe he's not telling his team that, but obviously his team reads what he says. And if you're saying that, you must tell them that. Look, I thought UCLA was going to be better this season, and obviously it's early in the year, so it's really hard to get an exact read on what they're going to be, Sean. But they were physically not ready to play that game, or just not as good, right, physically. And I do think, I will say, though, I do think for him, possibly playing your offense without really knowing what the offense is going to be is tough in week one, right? Because, what New Mexico was, but that doesn't mean that Utah's going to be the same thing. So maybe it's certainly fair that's maybe the way he felt about that. But like, I don't like to hear that. That feels like a lie. Look, my high school coach, the best advice I think I've ever gotten in life is don't lie to yourself. And it feels very much like he's lying to himself about what actually happened in that game.
Jeff Schwartz, our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking all things college football. Your Oregon Ducks have a Big 12 game, a Big 12 opponent this week.
Yeah, we do.
And Mike Gundy, who's the third longest tenured head coach in all of college football, has decided to stir things up against the Ducks and Dan Lanning and making a bunch of NIL comments. By the way, congratulations on your $40 million roster. I didn't know the number was that big, but I just wanted your thoughts on a guy who's been doing it for a long time, underplaying his own spending, and then also saying Oregon is only good because they have all the money.
Okay, so many things here. The Oklahoma State fans are like wondering, like, what? He was being complimentary. That was complimentary. He said we have to pay more for a quarterback if he stays. That we paid $7 million, Oregon pays $40. He mentioned that you should only schedule non-conference opponents based off of basically NIL structure, like who has the most money to schedule. Those teams. Like, I just thought it was very disingenuous from him, and backhanded compliments. And the reason, there's many reasons why I think we're going to win this game, but the reason why I know we're winning this game is Dan Lanning's response. I don't know if you were able to play that response, but I could pull it up for you. He basically said, like, you're poor, we're rich, and deal with it. And the one thing
he also said something about, I think it's funny that people have to build in the excuses even before the game.
Yeah, so he said, and we spend to win. Some people save to have an excuse for why they don't, right? And then at the very end, he says, this is pretty funny. So I can't speak on their situation. I have no idea, what they got in their pockets over there. I'm sure UT Martin maybe didn't have as much as them last week, and they played. So we'll let it play out. So the thing I've learned about Coach Lanning is when he thinks he's going to beat the team's butt, like, he is very cocky about it. And I think that they look at that film and he realized, like, we're going to smoke Oklahoma State. I'm going to say whatever I want. And I watched Oklahoma State defensively today on film, and if they run back what they did against UTM, it's going to be a pretty rough go for Oklahoma State. So, look, I'm high on my Ducks. I love my team. We've never had a more talented team than this year. And Sean, we played, at least to my count, 20 guys that were either first or second year players that had not played basically previously. And it doesn't include guys like Washington, who's our D tackle, who was Dane Brugler put out a tweet about, he played so well. He's a true junior, hadn't really played yet. So, like, we just have a very good team. It's very young. We're going to lose a game or two, probably, like, at Penn State, because we're young. Like, that happens, and that's fine. But it's a very good team. I think we're going to smoke Oklahoma State this weekend, and so I'm looking forward to that.
Were you surprised to see Miami beat Notre Dame the way they beat Notre Dame?
No, I actually was pretty surprised Notre Dame hung in there, to be honest with you. I don't think that I've said this before, that we acknowledge the difficulty of playing a road game in your first college start. I thought actually Carr played much better than I was going to give him credit for in that game. And I'm not surprised. Look, Miami, and just like Oregon, right? Like fourth year, okay, for both those coaches. And a lot of the production from Miami, from Oregon, all came from guys that they have brought into the program as high school players, especially on the lines. And that really showed itself for Miami in this game, and the fruition of developing guys, and there's an important quality to that, and it feels like a lot of places don't really understand that, and Miami's done it the hard way. There's some portal guys, like they got a portal center, they got some portal secondary players, but a lot of what we saw from production from them was guys that they had brought in, Sean, and I appreciate that. They gave them time to work and get better, and that's what we saw from Miami.
Should TCU be in the top 25 after their performance last night?
I just don't know how you don't rank North Carolina in the top 25. What a performance. I do not understand why. Oh, take that back. I get why they did it. But this sort of idea of like Belichick being Deion, essentially, like they've been pushing this idea that he is not the same thing. For starters, he doesn't have Shadur Sanders or Travis Hunter on his roster, and he doesn't have the charisma and the bravado of Deion. Like one thing, look, we were covering Deion from the second he showed up. Remember how excited we were for that? Like, because we had not seen a guy like that before come in the portal. His kid Hunter, Belichick is boring, man. And then also too, when he was, in the last 4 or 5 years in New England, his teams weren't very good because he was terrible at drafting. And like, why do we think all of a sudden he's going to find the best players to bring in? I just never believed that Belichick was going to be good in this spot. And I kind of got justification last night for that. It is interesting though that TCU both had Colorado's first game with Deion, and then had this first game as well with Belichick.
Yeah, it's a fun little quirk of it's like a sports trivia question, the answer to it at least, and Sonny Dykes, I think, gets a little salty over the fact that no one ever talks about the TCU angle here, even today. Even they destroyed North Carolina, and no one's talking about the fact that hey, TCU's good, they got a good quarterback. Sonny Dykes is a good coach. They're talking about, Bill Belichick doesn't know what he's doing in college football, instead of the fact that, like, hey, TCU might actually be a team you got to reckon with.
Oh, they took that very personal yesterday, I think. I think they really did. And so, no, you're right. No one's talking about them because we're talking about Belichick, and TCU looked really good yesterday.
Before I let you go, the NFL season starts on Thursday, as you mentioned. Micah Parsons, we chatted about, the fact that the Cowboys weren't able to get anything done. He's now in a Green Bay Packers uniform. A new report has come out that he instructed his agent, hey, keep me in a Cowboys uniform. Let's do this. And that it was the Cowboys who said, nope, too late. We're trading him. Who's gonna end up regretting that situation? Is it going to be Jerry saying, dang, I wish I had his 12 sacks a year? Or is it going to be, somehow the Cowboys, I can't really even finish the sentence because I don't see how it works out better for them. But
you're just not going to draft players as good as him. It's like your two first round picks, right, are going to be lower first round picks, right, Sean? Like in the late 20s. Not going to another Parsons. You're not going to, when he plays, they're number one in the NFL in EPA. Okay. When he doesn't, they're 31st in the EPA. So basically efficiency numbers, okay? And I just don't see how this helps the Cowboys as of now. Now, if they use this salary cap money and I guess, I don't know, buy some good players. But the thing is, everyone's like, Herschel Walker trade. They got like 12 draft picks. Like they didn't get the same haul in this trade. Or it's not the same thing. And I just don't know how you make the case that you're better off without one of the better players in the National Football League or one of the better pass rushers in the National Football League.
I don't see it either. I mean, it's funny because I'm watching this as I'm also watching the Netflix documentary about the Cowboys, and how Jerry kind of like did it right for those first, that first decade, getting the team and then getting the right guys on the team and stuff like that. And I guess that makes you understand on some level why he thinks he's still so smart when it comes to football. But you watch that where it's just like, oh, look at this gambler, all these things paying off. And then you see what he's doing now. You're like, oh, this is somehow the same guy, but the results are going to be very different here.
Well, have you? So how much have you watched the documentary?
Just the first two.
Yeah, I think I'm right. I'm right when they beat the Niners in the NFC Championship game. So I think that's like the first two, right? Maybe the third one. And the thing that I noticed is that they have all the best players in the NFL. That kind of helps, right?
Yeah.
Have the best players in the NFL.
I've been told that helps.
Yeah, they don't have the best players in the NFL anymore. So all this bravado and whatnot. And look, you have to be adaptable in sports and in life. And this whole holdup on the handshake thing, man, is so odd to me. Like, okay, you bought the Cowboys with a handshake, and then your lawyers talked for 30 days and figured signed the contract. You know what I mean? Like, that was the start of it. There's still more to be done. And two parties have to agree on a handshake deal. So you might have thought it was a handshake deal. Parsons clearly did not think it was a handshake deal. So that's like us getting a handshake saying, hey, man, you will have a show when the Pac-12 dies. Or like, hey, man, I got a show, right? And my boss shakes my hand but doesn't actually say the same thing as I do, right?
Yeah.
Like, like that's what happened with us for basically a year, right? Like, if they're not in on the deal, it doesn't matter how much. Like, I was told for a year I get a show on the Big Ten Network, right? Like, it didn't happen. We shook hands after every time I talked to him. That doesn't mean a deal was done, right? Like,
yeah, it's crazy.
And Jerry's holdup on this to me is like, I don't understand why he's so ardent about this. That's not the way deals get done, buddy. And you know better than that. You're a good business person.
In this case, it's a head scratcher for me. I wanted to make sure I wasn't alone in that regard, because you kind of know what you're talking about when it comes to this NFL stuff.
A little bit. Where's you got PFL this week? Where you guys at?
No PFL till the end of the month.
Okay.
And it'll be in France, in Nantes, France. So send me your French recommendations. I know you're a big France guy. And then,
my wife and I love Paris the time we went.
And then Dubai after that. But that's not.
You'd be shocked that I liked Paris. Like, we stayed up late and like ate dinner super late at night and stuff.
I'm actually really shocked that you like Paris because everything in France is smaller.
Oh yeah, the chair. Yeah, it wasn't great for like your boy, but the food and I like the vibe though, man. The vibe was I liked it better than London.
Oh, okay, that's a hot take. I don't know about that.
Really?
Yeah, I think it all depends on where you go in London too. I was in the right spot in London when we were there.
London just feels like a New York. Paris felt different.
London to me is what New York wishes it was, because New York is rat infested and scary, and there's like, people down on their luck everywhere you look.
Okay, I feel like scary is the word that we don't use to talk about New York City. Are you parroting talking points right now?
What? No, New York is terrifying.
I go to New York. I'm going tomorrow. I go every week. It's not terrifying.
It's terrifying. You're gonna cry when you get out. It's too busy. It's too loud.
I'm not gonna LaGuardia to start crying in my car. It's like, get out of LaGuardia.
Yes.
I will say though, when I took the kids last time, we went on the subway, and there was a person that down their luck there in the subway system that was sitting in one of the benches. They were making a potty on themselves, and the hard part with the kids
is dystopian.
Okay? Is like you're like kids like Emmy was like, "What's she doing?" I'm like, "Just come here, please. We'll talk about it later."
Exactly. You're like, I don't know how to put it in proper context. Like the explaining to a 6-year-old.
Eugene, by the way, has some of those discussions with the kids where you're like, yeah, you're not old enough to maybe do this discussion, but yes, like you have to have them at sometimes with your kids at some point. You can't just live in sheltered Salt Lake City your whole life,
Yeah. Well, we got some of that going on here, but that's a conversation for another day. Great talking to you. Appreciate your time.
What are you gonna? How much are you gonna win by this weekend? The line's not up yet, but I'm if it's like it's probably gonna be 45.5 is my guess, or anywhere between 45.5 and probably 48.5. I think you're gonna beat Cal Poly by like 63-0.
Yeah, they have to. And actually, BYU beat Portland State and held Portland State to -5 yards rushing.
69, yeah, 69-0. Yeah,
69-0.
Nice.
So now Utah's got to.
Did they play with the running clock? Did BYU like the last? I'm curious about that. Some of these games.
I don't know actually. The Little League rule, the mercy.
Well, because
rule.
when Oregon beat them 81-7 a couple years ago, Portland State like put their backups in like fourth drive of the game. Like, oh, we're done with this.
That's probably the right thing. I don't know. I don't know if that's what happened at BYU. I don't. And you know what? You got to give Cal Poly their respect. All right. My grandfather played there, so that's a tough team. All right.
Let's be honest. It's not going to be a tough. If it's a tough game, you have to come back and take my Utah text back.
All right.
All right. I'll talk to you later, buddy.
All right. Thank you. That's Jeff Schwartz, part of our Big 12 at noon, brought to you by Mountainland Supply, mountainlandsupply.com for all of your home improvement needs. Also, it's getting to be that time of year. The weather is great right now, but 6 weeks from now, you might feel the cold creeping in. It might be getting wet, rainy, maybe some of that sleet or even a snow shower here or there. And you're going to be like, I really wish I had fixed these windows that have been bothering me 6 weeks ago. Or I wish I had made the call to 801-850-9100 and got Advanced Windows to come out, give me a quote on a full lifetime warranty set of replacement windows with $2,500 off, 10 windows or more. I wish I had done that. Don't find yourself 6 weeks from now being like, he told me on September 2nd I should have done it. I'm telling you right now, by the time they come out, they give you the quote, they tell you how it's going to improve the energy efficiency of your home, the resale value of your home, tell you how affordable it is, the energy savings cost offsets, the financing options, and you're like, okay, now's the time. Let's make this purchase. Let's improve my home. I want to take advantage of the $2,500 off, 10 windows or more discount you've got going on right now. They say, all right, we're going to manufacture these windows ourselves. We're going to install these windows ourselves. For the lifetime of this home, we're going to warranty these windows ourselves at Advanced Window Products. It's going to take 6 weeks from now when you said, yes, I want these windows, until we actually put them in your house. So get out ahead of it. You don't want this job being done in the snow. Do it now. 801-850-9100. Tell them OC sent you. The mayor of Sac Lake City, Nate Orchard, Jake Weber, the owners of the company. Advanced Windows has been doing things the right way for 30-plus years. These guys took over, and they improved it even more. Tell them OC sent you when you call. Scott Mitchell joins us next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.
Well, if I'm going to be completely honest, I've always coveted Lander as a tight end since he was in high school.
Dampier rolls to his right. He's going to throw down the field. Has a man open in the end zone. Caught, touchdown. That's Lander Barton, the linebacker turned tight end in the end zone for a Utah touchdown.
He was so productive in high school as a tight end and slot receiver that it's a natural now in this day and age where more players are getting an opportunity to play on both sides of the ball to utilize his talent as a tight end.
Freddie Whittingham's comments about Lander Barton and the dual threat capabilities that the Utah tight ends coach always saw in the youngest Barton. Obviously, he's emerged to be a great linebacker, and he caught a touchdown pass lining up at the tight end position. He also blocked well in the game. If you listen to Coach Whittingham's assessment, you got to wonder how much we're going to see of Lander Barton. Now, I enjoy talking with Jeff Schwartz, who just joined us, because Jeff he doesn't have the fan allegiance, and he's unemotional about everything almost to a fault. So while we think it's cool that this guy who we've watched since high school, who's a legacy and a great representative of a Utah athletics royal family, you get the Jeff Schwartz assessment. Like, do you need him at tight end though? Because you need him at linebacker, and you don't want anyone to have injury problems. So I think you're going to see sparing usage of Lander Barton. I think you're going to see probably pretty liberal usage of Smith Snowden. We'll figure it out with Jackson Benny, but I started the show ranting about how wonderful the first impression was with Jason Beck as the play caller and with Devin Dampier as the quarterback, and a guy who played that quarterback position at the University of Utah and now hosts Down and Dirty right here on ESPN 792 on FM. Scott Mitchell joins us to talk about especially this Utah offense and their first performance against UCLA. Scott, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's always fun when the games are easy to call, and it's as exciting and compelling as it was.
Let's start with Devin Dampier. We knew that he was talented. We knew that he was dynamic. We watched the New Mexico film. The question of whether or not that will translate to the Utah football level, to the Power 4 level, I think was answered, at least, the first sample size looks like absolutely yes. You played the position. You look at it with a much more educated eye than I do. What was your assessment of his debut performance taking snaps for the University of Utah?
Well, I don't think you can underestimate or state enough having a guy transfer with his offensive coordinator with the same offense he had. I mean, it looks like New Mexico on steroids. It looks like the same player. It looks like the same plays, but only better. And I asked Devin that after the game. I said, how has this evolved? How is it different? He says, the offensive line to start with, and that was very evident in the game where he had just the tremendous amount of time to throw. And if there is one critique, and I mentioned on the broadcast, and I'm not trying to be nitpicky, but I am trying to look at the long game here. When Utah just dropped back to throw the football, there wasn't play action. He wasn't moving in the pocket. He wasn't run by design. That's a part of his game that's not. He's not totally comfortable with that. Tyler Huntley wasn't comfortable with that, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter. And so he either needs to get more comfortable, and he mentioned it. He says, I've got to hit the reads. I've got to see it. I got to get the ball out quicker when I'm throwing the football, and I believe that's the case. And I don't see how these receivers can't be open, because you run the football like Utah did, everything's going to be open. And that was really the one critique. And, it's the first game and trying to get familiar with a lot of guys. That's probably the thing that's the biggest challenge is, how do you get game comfortable with a bunch of new guys, even though you know the system, and hopefully that'll evolve. Because if it does, it's kind of lights out for Devin. And I'm a person. Look, I know it's a long thing. It's a marathon. I don't want to overreact to anything, but I had this, and I wrote it down in my notes, and I just said I just said Devin Dampier should be considered for the Heisman this year. And I know this is a massively early statement, but it's the same guy. I mean, this isn't like this is new. Like he's doing the same things he did at New Mexico. He has the same offensive coordinator. He's on a much better team, and he made a huge statement in Game 1. And he got the attention of all the national people. I mean, Matt Leinart goes, "This guy looks like Kyler Murray," and Pat McAfee, was just effusive over Devin Dampier, and so he's got the attention, which is part of what you need to be considered for the Heisman. He's got the attention of people that have voices on a national stage. And I was going to keep it to myself for a while, but I'm putting it out there. And I know that's a bold statement very early in the year, but I like to go big and bold. And Devin has a capability, Sean, that it's uncanny, and his ability to be elusive and to make guys miss him. There was one situation he was rolling out to the right, and this DB blitz from the opposite side, and he had a bead on him, and I'm just like, he's going to just get knocked out right here. And he just at the last minute kind of slipped out of it and ran the ball for 15-yard gain. And so the sky really is the limit. It's just now, can they handle success? Now can you put two games together? Now can you beat a lesser opponent? Now can you win a big game when it matters? A conference game, a tough game against really good competition. That remains to be seen. But if you're going to do it right the first night out, they certainly did it Saturday night.
Jason Beck put together a masterful game plan, and I think what was important for me is he showed that, yes, there's a bunch of new wrinkles and new creativity in this Utah offense than what people are used to, but he is willing and eager to also just say, all right, let's just pin our ears back and let's push this other team around. And you saw closer personal than I did, the 20-play, almost 10-minute drive where Utah just imposed their will for the entirety of a third quarter against UCLA. To be able to do that and to have a little bit of the flash that we saw pieces of, it feels like the offensive balance that you're going to need to display for Kyle Whittingham in order for it to all come together the right way.
Yeah, and so much of 20-play drives is winning on first down, and that's really what Utah did for most of the night. I mean, they just weren't shut down. Whether they ran the ball or threw the ball, it was 4 yards, it was 6 yards, it was 7 yards. And so now you're in very manageable second downs and then even more manageable third downs if you get there. A lot of people say success is when you don't ever get to third down, and that's when you win on first and second down. And Utah did a lot of that, but it was definitely up front. And it was up front on both sides of the ball. There was just a tremendous surge, and you talk about that 20-play drive. The thing that I got excited about more than anything is that they didn't take their feet off the gas. In the fourth quarter, they're throwing the football, and they're up 30-10 or whatever it was at that point. Clearly the game's in hand, and I just like that, go after it and finish the game and play to the whistle type of mentality, because that's the way you have to play. And Coach Whittingham's pretty good about that, just keeping guys in the moment. But just I loved how on both sides of the ball Utah finished the game, and they finished it playing to win as opposed to let's sit on the lead and play not to lose kind of mindset. And that was one of the things I was most excited about on Friday night.
Man, I've been remiss.
Saturday night.
We haven't even talked enough about the defensive performance because it's so exciting to see what this offense has done. John Henry Daly, a pair of sacks. Logan Fano, tackle for loss and a sack in an important scenario. Is Sack Lake City back based on that first game performance?
A lot of what UCLA was doing was getting rid of the ball quick. I mean, the full first half, I think there might have been one throw that was over 10, 15 yards to Mikey Matthews, former Utah wide receiver, that was just a little long. So everything was really quick. And even though Nico Iamaleava was getting the ball out fast, Utah was still getting pressure, and that was very good to see. And it wasn't just one guy. They were getting a lot of pressure from the edge, but a really nice push up the middle. which really made it very difficult for Nico to get out of the pocket. So the pass rush discipline and coordination was excellent, but there was even though they were getting rid of the ball quickly, there was a really good push and a lot of pressure. There were some throws, even though they didn't get to the quarterback, they impacted his accuracy. And yes, they got sacks on a guy that's pretty athletic, pretty elusive, and getting, he's not sitting back there holding the ball either. And so you got to be really pleased with the production there. And the beautiful thing about the next couple of weeks and even last week is I think these defensive linemen, they just all need game reps, and they're going to get better and better as they play. And so these next couple of games, they're all going to get to play a lot, which I think will really help them kind of get a little seasoned before they get into the conference schedule. But from the first blush, it was incredible. In fact, that's what I said, Coach Whittingham, after the game. I said, everything you said about this team was accurate. There were no surprises. Like, the offensive line was as advertised. You do have a lot of depth, and you've got some guys on that defensive line, and your defense is very solid, probably better than it was a year ago. And that offensive line and Devin Dampier, everything they talked about came to fruition, and in a big way. And you're always expecting a surprise. You're always expecting some group not to play as well as the other group, and they did. They did exactly as they were advertised as, and probably better.
The Smith-Snowden experiment, is he going to be more of an offensive weapon or more of a defensive stalwart for Utah this year?
Yeah, it's another question I asked Coach Whittingham, because he was so effective on offense, and he's another one of those guys. The more you get in the ball, I'm sure the more comfortable he's going to get, and you're going to see more production. But at what cost? Where does it hurt you on the backside? And Smith referred to it. He says, he felt like, or they felt like his best need would have been on offense this week, whereas maybe other weeks, he maybe needed more on defense. And so maybe that's kind of the balance, more of where the need is and who the opponent is, and maybe some of the matchups and what have you. But what was nice is, he got in the game, and they were really smart about how they got the ball to him. They got the ball in his hands in a position to make plays, and he made plays. And that, that's Jason Beck's offense. It's just, who's the hot hand, who's going to make plays for us, and whoever it is, we're going to dial up their number and make it happen. And there were times with Lander. There are three defensive players that had significant plays in the game: Jackson Benny, Smith Snowden, and Lander Barton. If you talk to Lander's dad, I know you mentioned it before I got on the air, but Lander's dad, Paul, who I played with at Utah, said, my son should be a tight end. It's where everything is today in the NFL, and I just think he'd be an amazing tight end. But he wants to play linebacker, and I just think he should be a tight end. And so maybe at the end of the day, who knows where Lander ends up. But I really think, Sean, there has to be some kind of system. There's got to be a lot of communication, because you don't want to get guys burned out, and they probably won't tell you, they're all going to say, oh no, I'm fine. But I have to believe if you're never getting off the field, there might come a critical time when you got to make a tackle and you're kind of gassed and you just don't quite get there. You don't quite make the tackle, and or on the converse, if you're on offense, the same thing. And so the good thing is there's so many of them, it's not like it's just one guy. You got three guys that could play significant time on both sides of the field. So maybe kind of spreading that out and using that based on opponent might be the best way to do it.
Well, let's talk about the third of those three guys. Jackson Benny went from being exclusively a special teams player last year, which is a great way to start, right, to now a guy that this coaching staff fully trusts to be a starting caliber player, both on offense as a wide receiver and playing slot corner. This is, you talk about like a leap up in what your role on a team is from year to year. That's as big as it gets. You knew that the coaching staff loved and trusted Lander Barton, and he's put in his time. And same with Smith Snowden. But now you've got this guy who, if I'm not mistaken, started his career at Utah as a walk-on, who is one of the most trusted and valued players on the team by the coaching staff. That's a hell of a surge.
Well, it speaks to the program, and these are the kinds of players that Utah's found and developed through the years, and it's really still refreshing in the world of portals and NIL deals that there's someone like that around. And I think he's the guy that they probably said has made the biggest leap of anyone in the program, even from spring to fall. And a big part of his leap has actually been on the offensive side of the ball, and he's got just some elite speed. That's things that you can really work with, and you saw the really nice play made offensively. And I would expect to see a lot more of him offensively and on defense as well. But his greatest impact this year could be offensive. There's another guy who didn't get a lot of reps, but Hunter Andrews, when he had that, I was like, that guy needs to be somewhere. And I know they've tried to figure out somewhere for him, and I don't know what that is, but he is a guy that needs to be on the field, and I'm sure they'll look at this game and see the same thing. But, when you're talking about Jackson Benny, there was a time on defense, and he wasn't the only one, but open field tackling, it's just funny to watch it every year. It's usually the last thing that they do well. Like you just don't. It takes a game or two to get up to that speed and just to really commit to a guy in the open field. There's still that hesitation. You still have that in the back of your mind, that thud speed or that tap off at the hips, and where in the game, it's like you just got to go and fully commit in the open field. And you just saw, several tackles that you say they usually would make that, and it just takes a minute for guys. And I saw Jackson have one of those situations, but those are kind of some of the things that you see from the first to the second game, and you see a huge improvement. But the one thing you usually see that I didn't, and that was the offensive line. Usually the offensive line takes a game or two to kind of get synced up, and man, I'm telling you, Sean, they were coming off the ball and they were lights out, like from snap one all the way through the end of the game.
Yeah, that group's going to be very fun to watch all year long, it seems. We mentioned after the game that Dallas Vakalahi maybe got a little bit banged up and will potentially be out for a little bit of action. You mentioned the defensive linemen that will get reps, and these next couple of games, especially this next game against Cal Poly, you're expecting to see depth everywhere, right? So you should be 40-plus point favorites against an FCS opponent, as now Utah is ranked top 25 in the country. What are you looking for from a development of depth perspective and, getting some of these young guys more reps, regardless of position?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me, and it's just a general thing with the team, but it does impact reps, and that is that you really treat every opponent the same. And so if you're supposed to beat an opponent, you're supposed to beat them by a lot, then beat them by a lot. If you struggle to beat them, then you get kind of nervous, and that tells you that maybe you're not that good, or maybe you're not that focused, or maybe you're not that mature, and you're not ready to be kind of a primetime player. But in a week like this, it means everyone who shows up and plays. So the starters, they go, and they may not tell them this, but they go, you guys are probably going to be playing a half, and depending on where things are, and then you're done. And so if you tell these guys that, they kind of, maybe they don't have the same mindset, but they should. And then it's when those second guys come in, it's like, there shouldn't be a drop-off. Like, you're 1As, you're ones in waiting, and so we don't want to see a drop-off when the twos come into play, because we're counting on a lot of these guys, and a lot of these guys are, really are going to get so much valuable time. This is, when you play a game like this is part of developing your depth, and and you do it two ways. You preserve your starters because they're not going to play as much, and so it just extends the season for them. It extends their freshness through the season, and then your backups are going to get more reps than maybe they normally would, and then that just gives them more experience. And so they're better prepared. They're more confident. They're more comfortable when they get into a game that really matters down the road. And so people go, well, this is just kind of a throwaway game or whatever it is. And it's like, no, this is as important to the season as any game could possibly be for the preservation and development of your depth. And depth, to me, I think is one of the key, one of the top two things that's so important in winning championships. You can't get into the end of the season and be dead or be banged up and not have anyone to play. And every championship Utah's won, it's been because that team was deep. And there were injuries and there were guys that were banged up, but other guys were able to step in and you didn't miss a beat. And it's because of games this early in the season that are so valuable.
Scott, I always appreciate your time and your insight. Thank you very much. We'll talk again soon.
Love to. Thank you, Sean.
Scott Mitchell, host of the Down and Dirty right here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM, immediately preceding the Sean O'Connell Show. You know what? I should ask Scott if he's played Stansbury Park Golf Course yet. If you haven't, now's the right time. In fact, you know what? This week, it's a shortened week at work. You're not going to be overly productive anyway, so just take a day off, another day off. You already had Monday off. Take tomorrow. Tell the boss, look, let's just write this week off, and we'll be productive next week. I'm going to go golf. In fact, invite the boss to come with you. Say, hey, bring an extra sleeve of golf balls because we're going to Stansbury Park. There are traps. There is water on nearly every hole. And, maybe a little trash talk to your boss. Establish a new power dynamic with the boss by being better at golf than they are at Stansbury Park Golf Course. $45 for 18 holes on weekdays, only $50 for 18 holes on weekends. It's right off of I-80. Just head out west and around the point of that mountain, head to Stansbury Park. Gorgeous greens, very carefully thought out, laid out, and challenging course. The perfect spot to go enjoy a day of golf, enjoy this last great weather of the year. $45 on weekdays and $50 on weekends, like I said. Stansbury Park, great rates, gorgeous greens, minutes away, totally worth it. Book your tee time now at stansburypark.gov/golf course. stansburypark.gov/golf course. All right, double break, and then we're going to talk about that pass rush. Is Sac Lake City back based on a one-game performance? We'll get to it on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Hour 3 here on the Sean O'Connell Show, and it is that time of year again. Greek Festival is back in Salt Lake City. Holy Trinity Greek Orthodox Cathedral plays host September 5th through the 7th. That's this coming weekend. They'll have the classic Greek food, entertainment, and much more. Do not miss Greek Festival. Get your tickets now at Salt Lake City GreekFestival.com. And we're going to be giving away a family 4-pack to the Greek Festival in topical trivia today. So just stay tuned here. 40 or so minutes from now, we'll give away some tickets. All right, we've been digesting this Utah football performance from week 1. And honestly, I will tell you that I debated. I thought about, you know what, let's temper our expectation. Let's be reasonable. Let's not just go overboard after one win. We know that sometimes you can convince yourself of anything when you see confirmation bias. When you see your eyes tell you the same story that your mind has been manufacturing for an entire offseason, you can really fall victim to something that gets discouraging later on. But I can't do the measured approach today. Not after how dynamic Devin Dampier was, but not just dynamic. The thing that you knew about him from New Mexico is that he was dynamic, that he's a guy who's incredibly hard to bring down. He's got wheels, that he's shifty, that he's got a natural instinct even for contact balance in college football, which maybe you don't want to see from a quarterback. The only nitpick that you can pull out of his performance is that maybe he needs to get down faster or get out of bounds faster and not take some of those hits. But we've seen this. Sometimes it just takes a minute. And sometimes guys, regardless of how many coaches walk up and say, hey, next time slide, they want that extra yard. They got that Tebow in them.
Also, what's the point of squatting almost 600 pounds in the summer if you're not going to take a hit? Come on now.
If you're not going to push through some contact, why are you lifting all that weight? All right?
Show muscles, as Jerry Sloan said about Russell Westbrook towards the end of his life. Come on, these are not show muscles.
So,
Devin Dampier can handle it.
What you knew he was capable of after watching the New Mexico film was the 16 carries for 87 yards and a touchdown. You knew that. All right? You're like, absolutely yes. What you knew he was capable of after watching all of that New Mexico film was the elusiveness, the evasiveness, the 0 sacks surrendered. You knew that. The question mark was, is this guy going to be efficient in the pass game? 21 of 25 for 206 yards, 2 touchdowns. 8 yards per completion is above that magical John Pease, rest in peace, coach, we love you, that line of that's a tough team to beat. If you're 8 yards plus per completion, that's a good day. Now, is it the sexiest number in all of college football? No. There's going to be some teams that are chucking it all over the yard, and they're 9.5 yards per completion. They're 10 yards per completion. Those teams are not running for 300 yards a game. Utah just shy of that at 286 on 54 attempts, 5+ yards per carry. I'm not a math whiz, but I'm telling you that if Utah can put together an average all season long, like 5 yards per carry, and behind this offensive line, why not? That's going to lend itself to a lot of success. Was it a perfect performance by Devin Dampier? Maybe no, not quite. Was it a perfect performance even by the offensive line? No, not quite. But guess what? In a week 1 performance, it was as close as we have seen in recent history for the University of Utah.
21 of 25, so 4 of his plays weren't perfect. That's about it, right?
How dare you, Devin?
No, I saw a couple of comments, and I'm not able to watch terribly closely when I'm producing the broadcast because I'm looking at this computer over here, cutting highlights. I'm looking at the board here, make sure we're coming back on time and all that stuff. But I saw a couple of comments on Twitter. Did you notice him missing wide open guys? There's a few people who are like, yeah, it's one thing that I'm like, he missed some guys.
Okay.
On Saturday. I didn't see it, but I wasn't able to be glued to it like some other people were.
I'm still on my first view of the game. I haven't gone back and watched it again yet. I will. I'll do that tonight, and maybe some of that jumps off the page. First of all, That happens in every football game. That happens to every quarterback. And the reason it might become problematic for Utah fans is if it's the wide receiver room specifically that he's missing, if he's dialed too in on his tight ends or on running backs out of the backfield or whatever. But let's not get this way yet. All right?
Yeah, that was my takeaway. I'm like, maybe he did. Maybe I don't know. I didn't see it, but like, should that really be your takeaway?
What your takeaway needs to be in this game is that Utah's offense, not Utah's defense, okay? They played well, and they carried the day, which is fully the expectation. But Utah's offense won this game for the University of Utah. Utah's offense led the charge here. Utah's offense converted 14 of 16 third downs. What? Utah's offense, 10 yards per pass completion, basically. It just was ridiculous. In a good way, ridiculous. And the play calling, the creativity, the lack of redundancy of Jason Beck was fantastic. And I will beat this to death. I apologize in advance. But I cannot stress enough the importance of him coming in his first actual live performance and reinforcing the trust that Kyle Whittingham gave him when handing him that job. Reinforcing that by saying, not only am I going to put points on the board, coach, but watch what happens here in the third quarter. 9 minutes and 44 seconds of possession on a single drive. Watch what we're going to do. Of course, it's the players out there executing it, right? But that offense, believing in the play calls, him scripting that game, adjusting to what the defense was doing, although they weren't doing much. UCLA stinks out loud, ladies and gentlemen. But, man, to say without saying, and maybe he did after the game, but to show your new boss, you made the right decision on me. Not only can I do this better than you were doing it last year, but I can do it better the same way you like to do it, coach. I can run this thing the way you like to run it. I can chew up the clock. When we get into a tight game against Texas Tech, and they're so dynamic, and they've got all these like high-flying talents, and they're a speed-based team, and you want to slow this game down, you want to chew time off the clock, I can do that because you've recruited the personnel, you've developed with Jim Harding this offensive line. I know how to utilize that in a way that, for whatever reason, some coaches, they just fall short of this in college football. Just seeing what's on the page in front of them and being like, well, look at this. I've got two running backs that Kyle Whittingham reinforced for us today were interchangeable starters, right? I've got a quarterback who's effectively a third running back. So watch what I'm going to do here. Behind this great offensive line, I'm just going to gobble up an entire quarter. If you're Kyle Whittingham and you're watching this film again, you're just like, oh, my gosh. Against UCLA, we actually didn't need to do that. UCLA was threatening for about 6 minutes of this game when they made it 20-7, and then they forced Utah to punt. And it was just like, okay, maybe they're having a little bit of a moment here. That's as long as it lasted. UCLA was nothing. They can't hang with Utah. If you played this game 10 times, Utah would win 10 times. Deshaun Foster's going to get fired during this season. He's completely disconnected. It sucks. You don't like to see that for UCLA, but.
Yeah, did you see his? I watched it again. We're close.
Yeah. I watched that whole media availability where he was just like, I'm actually more pleased with our performance than I was after the game, after I watching the film. It's like, what are you talking about?
Close to the bottom of the Power Four? Is that what we're saying?
He said we're close.
Man.
43-10 ain't close. 43-10, there's no close effort there. Now, I'm all for a coach taking the bullets himself and not throwing it on his team. Yeah, our guys tackled poorly. They blocked poorly. Our guys were not physical enough at the point of attack. Our guys were scared. Our guys were whatever. You don't have to do that. I don't want to see him do that. But for him to say, guys, we actually were a lot closer in a blowout, no, you're not. You don't say that. You can say, I as a coach need to do a better job of getting this team ready. I know we have the talent. I know we have the skill. It's my fault. Go ahead and say that.
You can even say after watching the tape again, I actually saw a lot more positives than I saw watching it live, and I'm encouraged by that. But it's still not good enough. You can say that we're close.
So many ways to say it. Anyway, if I were a Bruins fan right now, I would be dying over not only the performance of the team, but of the coach's comments after the fact. We're here to talk Utes, though.
Absolutely.
And Devin Dampier, Jason Beck, as this new package that seemingly is not going to require an adjustment period the way that you fear maybe it would. They hit the ground running, literally and figuratively. I cannot wait to talk to Devin about his perspective this week in addition with Dev, like just how it felt, how throwing his first touchdown pass as a Ute felt. How it felt to be out there at the Rose Bowl and knowing against, an iconic uniform against a team that's got probably, on defense, they probably have 3 NFL guys, that you were still the most dynamic player on the field. I can't wait to talk to him about it. We spent a lot of time on the offense. So I need to give.
And the Spidey celebration, too.
Yes,
we're definitely getting to that,
We're
too.
going to get to that. The Spider-Man web shooting celebration. First of all, I love it. Second of all, I think we might be the progenitors of this. I think that we might have some influence over it.
I mean, we're not saying we do, but you guys heard and you watched on YouTube the first conversation.
I'm not saying that we're the one who gave him the Spider-Man. By the way, did you see Utah football's post before game day of him in the Spider-Man stance on the side of a building?
Yeah.
You're welcome, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Utah football, you're welcome.
I don't deserve the credit. It's not us, but I'm going to take it anyway because that's the way I am. That's just how I am as a human.
When you used the term Spidey sense in that first episode, Dishing with Dev, Thursdays at noon, his reaction was he laughed really hard and he went, and his reaction was, I hadn't thought of it like that before. I'm going to start saying it now. That was his reaction. It was not, and then he's really leaned into it. So I don't know. I feel like we can claim it, OC.
Well, in any case, Devin Dampier and Jason Beck, that is the best first impression that I've seen in sports in my life.
So good.
There's plenty of great rookie performances, right? Like you can go back through Utah football and look at this freshman. Look at the first time we see this guy. There's plenty of that. But for the course of an entire game, what you saw from Devin only gives you faith that this team is in better hands, certainly than they were with a rotating door of reserve quarterbacks last year. And with respect, I'm a big Bryson Barnes fan that you can find out there. With respect to him, like Devin Dampier is just a more capable player to make this offense what it needs to be if Utah is going to compete for a Big 12 championship. And that was honestly the trepidation. That was the fear, that you were going to see something against UCLA, even in a win, because I didn't think UCLA was good, and they confirmed for me that they are bad. But I was like, even in a win, I don't want to see something that makes me think, Utah actually, like, that's a cool win, but Utah actually probably doesn't have what it takes to compete with Iowa State, TCU, Baylor, who might not be as good as we thought, Arizona State, who might not be as good as we thought. All these teams, I mean, there's 6 teams plus at the top of the Big 12 conference, and it was BYU's going to be there. And it was like, do they have what it takes? I was worried we would see something where it's like, well, yes, if they eliminate that, or just a flat-out no. And in week 1, all you can ask for is that what you see in front of you preserves the hope that this is a really good football team. And everything we saw points yes to that, including the defensive side of the football in a very specific area. You knew the linebackers were going to be good. By the way, I tweeted it. Levani Damuni, that tackle that he had,
oh my gosh,
is going to be on the 2025 highlight tape for the rest of the college football season and beyond. When they do the banquet and send the seniors off, including Levani Damuni, that's going to be on the tape that they play from week one. That is a perfect form tackle. That is how you should approach every challenge that you have in your life.
Scott Mitchell, great dad joke on the call, too. Levani DeMooney bringing the boomy. They roasted him for it.
As they should have.
But that was
as they should have.
Bringing the boomy DeMooney.
You knew the linebacking core was going to be good. You wondered about the corners. Scooby played well. Cotton played well. I liked everything we saw from the safeties. Teo Johnson did miss a tackle that you don't want to see. But the defensive line, interior defensive line, where you had to have freshmen playing, that's not a position where freshmen typically excel. Carson Calfusi, half sack, looked awesome. All right? Pupu Sepulona, all the coaches have been so high on him and praising him and telling us this kid's going to be really good. Looked awesome in the game. Dallas Vakalahi, unfortunately, had to leave the game, banged up. He played well. Aliki Vimahi is the player that we thought he was going to be. And the pass rush. Sac Lake City
so good.
Ain't been Sac Lake City as of late. John Henry Daly, welcome to a Utah uniform. Thank you for living up to the expectation that I set in my own mind by talking to his coaches and talking to his former coaches when he was a BYU player. They were like, this is one of the most talented guys that we've had. Now, the cultural program fit at BYU was not good for him. It didn't work. They were not going to be able to get what they needed out of him. He's not a BYU cat. Okay, fine. At the University of Utah, all fall long, Logan Fano was just like, yeah, watch, John Henry Daly's good. Caleb Loam was like, I'm going up against John Henry Daly every day, and he's causing me a lot of problems. And in this game, he had 2 sacks. And in this game, not only did he have 2 sacks, but he was always around the pile. He was good against run blocking. Cash Dillon looked good. Logan Fano, in that brief flash of when UCLA looked like they might actually bow up and show some teeth in this game, Logan Fano got his defense off the field. Sack, tackle for loss, now punt it back to us. That's what you need from star players. That's what you need from players at that position. And obviously you want it to happen every single down, but the recognition of just being like, oh, they're showing a little bit of life here. Somebody's got to go out and make a play. And for him to put in back-to-back plays to go along with a solid performance the rest of the game, but back-to-back plays that effectively shut down an offensive possession for UCLA, you have to have that caliber of player rushing the passer in this Big 12 conference. Did you see some of the other quarterback play? I mean, Devin Dampier is going to be probably the most elusive and hard to bring down guy in all the conference, but Rocco Becht is a problem if he's got time. Josh Hoover is a problem if he's got time. Sam Levitt, underwhelming performance against Northern Arizona, but still a problem if he's got time. This Utah team needs a pass rush. Doesn't want a pass rush, needs a pass rush. Interior push only makes that better, and it looks like you've got it.
Yeah, the two things that were, and I would describe this performance as refreshing, OC, because
it's a great way to put it.
It was impressive, absolutely, but from what we saw the last 2 seasons, particularly on offense, this was just, you came out of this like you just drank a cool drink of water and you've been walking in the Sahara Desert or out in southern Utah for miles. You forgot to bring a water bottle. Like, that's what this felt like watching it unfold on offense. And then I would say the other part of it that felt really refreshing was that pass rush you just got done talking about, because that's an area that quietly has been on the decline for the past, 4, 5, 6 seasons.
And not for lack of talent, but because of health issues, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've beat this to death, but Connor O'Toole is on an NFL roster right now.
Because he's talented.
Because he's a talented dude. And the coaching staff recognized that the best spot for his football future was not playing wide receiver, was not adding bulk and being a tight end as a big wide receiver. The recognition was, let's move this guy to the defense and let's let him explode off the edge and see what he's actually going to be. And he has made an NFL roster that way. The unfortunate story is that he was never able to really realize that potential at the University of Utah because of lack of health. And the same is true of Van Fillinger, and the same is true of any assortment of guys who've come through this program. And up to this point has been true of Logan Fano as well. If Logan Fano stays healthy and that's the version of him we see all year long, he's a double-digit sack guy.
Yeah.
He's winning his matchups.
Obviously, John Henry Daly, 2 sacks in one night. If he has multiple handful of multiple sack games, or at least, gets a sack in most games, he's also potentially a double-digit guy. So it was nice to see after what we've seen from the pass rushers the past few years, because of guys playing hurt or not being able to play at all because of injury. And on offense, it was just like, finally, it feels good to watch Utah play offense again. And honestly, it felt a lot more fun than even the best Cam Rising years with under Andy Ludwig. It was just a fun.
It was fun
night.
It was fun. I don't want to get that far ahead of myself.
I just one game through there. The creativity stood out too, OC, is what I'm trying to get at. You didn't quite have that same kind of creativity, although obviously still very effective in those Andy Ludwig, Cam Rising years.
It was, again, it was everything you hoped it would be for a debut game, especially for that offense, but the defense looked good as well. There's always room for improvement. In fact, there was probably the exact right amount of mistakes made so that this team isn't out there saying like, oh, we're golden. We don't need to keep growing. Let's just do this the rest of the year, because complacency is the enemy of everything in college football. This team has things to work on, and they're going to clean some things up this week against Cal Poly. I'm trying to look up and see where Cal Poly maybe gave up. You can't get the same numbers from the stats aren't as well kept for FCS teams, but they beat San Diego in their first game, the Toreros of San Diego. Okay. I wanted to look up and see how many sacks Cal Poly gave up in that game, because Utah, I need them to double whatever that number was, and then get your starters off the field and have this game be over in the first half. But that's what's next for your Utes. The Kool-Aid that we are drinking here on the Sean O'Connell Show is a deep, deep classic crimson red. It is the exact color of the Kool-Aid man's belly. Oh, yeah, comes bursting through that wall. That's the color of Kool-Aid we are drinking. And just like when you stop at a roadside stand and grab that Kool-Aid, you grab that lemonade, in the bottom of the paper cup that you spent $1 for to help some little kid buy a bicycle or whatever, there is a sweet, sweet sediment of pink sugar that you're just like, wow, I should not ingest that, but it's so good, and I'm going to anyway. That is the level of Kool-Aid I'm drinking today. After much internal debate about whether I wanted to temper my own expectation and tell you to do the same thing, nope, not doing it. All in. College football playoff. Devin Dampier's in New York as a Heisman finalist. Outland Trophy on the offensive line. Let's go. Sean O'Connell Show continues here on a Tuesday that feels like a Monday because it's your first day back at work. ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show, and welcome in Jerem Jordan, BYU Sports Nation, friend of the program and BYU Cougar insider. BYU 1-0 after a 69-0 drubbing of the Portland State Vikings on the weekend. Bear Bachmeier, freshman quarterback, trotted out as the starter, 7 of 11 for 97 yards. 3 touchdowns, though. That's some efficiency. Jaron, welcome to the show. How are you?
Sean, what up, Don? It's a 1-0 week. Everybody rejoices here.
Yeah. Utah State 1-0, BYU 1-0, Utah 1-0. It's sometimes hard. We were asking the same question about Utah, like, UCLA looks like they kind of stink. We know Portland State stinks. And BYU and look, BYU treated them like a team who stinks, and that's all you can do.
Made them look stinky too.
Yes,
that helps. Yeah,
that's,
for sure.
That's
for
all.
Sure.
That's all you could do when that's the team that's coming to play you. You just go out and you execute, and BYU certainly did. So give me your broad strokes, your overarching takeaways from this first game of the season, knowing that the level of competition was designed to give you a performance like this on some levels.
Yeah, nearly perfect. I mean, you pitch a shutout. It's the largest shutout in BYU history. It's the second largest margin in BYU history. Do all that stuff, right? All those superlatives, just a big old bullet point sheet of stuff like that. That was fantastic. 51 yards allowed. I mean, wow. That was all great. Does it mean BYU is da-da-da? No. But it was sweet. And there's things to work on for sure, but not too much. I thought BYU looked pretty good. And it was one half of the starters. That was perfection. 42-0. Bear Bachmeier doesn't have to get hit a ton. His rating is 228 because he throws 3 touchdowns on 11 attempts, 7 completions, as you mentioned, his Slurpee game, 7-11. BYU runs for 468. LJ Martin hits a career high in the first half, 131 yards. He
on 8 carries. On 8 carries, right? Jerem.
Like that's and people always say, it's against so-and-so. Well, not everyone is doing these kind of numbers, right? In the past game, BYU wasn't explosive per se. They didn't need to be. They did run one special, which was the tornado reverse. Cody Hagan, the former Utah State 100 and 200 meter champion, showing off the speed, which was awesome. And so it looked great. The blocked field goal in return was fantastic. We all had Jack Kelly scoring the first touchdown of the year, so that was nice to see. Just kidding. It was spectacular. And, even more spectacular was Coach Barnum's comment about Bear Bachmeier looking like a centaur. So we have that to celebrate as well, which was pretty awesome. They also added to the game day experience, which is spectacular, by the way. It is so good. Everyone stayed there, even though it was, a blowout to the end. They added a drone outside the stadium, Sean, for the in-house feed. That was unbelievable. Just super cool shots. You don't need the Goodyear blimp anymore. You can just throw up a drone, and the game day experience continues to be awesome. By the way, breaking news, Skycam will be at LaVell Edwards Stadium this Saturday for BYU Stanford. That's one of my favorite things. It looks so good.
What do we have any Cougar Tail news? Is there any new flavors that we have?
No, but Old Reliable still hits.
It really does. It really, really does. All right. So you mentioned Jack Kelly's return on the blocked field goal. We've talked about this defense and how Jay Hill is, I think one of the hottest coaching commodities in the business. Yes, it is Portland State, but to hold a team on the day with your backups playing at least a half to a negative number in the rushing department is insane. Like, I know that there's a bookkeeping thing that some people don't like. You don't get to turn in negative numbers even when you're playing against FCS opponents unless your defense is really, really good. What did you think about that performance and those guys in particular?
Hard to be better than what they did. I mean, Portland State literally ran 12 plays in the second half. It was 4 3-and-outs. I mean, that's crazy. So you pitch the shutout, negative rush yards, 51 yards allowed is the second fewest recorded yards in BYU history. I mean, there was probably some games in the 20s and 30s or whatever. Who knows? In a slog at the Colorado School of Mines or something. Who knows or who cares? That was awesome. I thought, honestly, Claudius Take has way more sportsmanship than I do. Like, I want to see BYU put up 80. You know what I mean? But Kalani, Jay Hill, they've been on FCS coaching staffs, notably Jay Hill, of course, they didn't want to run it up too much. They wanted to be sportsmanlike. So what did BYU do? They didn't pass it a ton in the second half. They ran the ball, but if you can score running, you score. And there was even question of like, should you attempt a 56-yard field goal in the second half? I thought it was great. I know there could have been a question there of maybe we just punt, but Will Farron ties the school record. And he continues his consecutive field goal made streak, by the way, 18 in a row. That continues a BYU record. This kid's money, and he's going to set the BYU record at some point. They're going to get to the 40-plus, and they're going to set that record at some point this year. But I thought it was great. The BYU defense looks good. And you got a lot of experience for a lot of guys, which is what you want. You want to feel that. If guys are freshmen and they're redshirting, you play them in 4 games in the bowl game, and they can retain that redshirt, which is great. I wish they had that rule in some capacity in other sports in the NCAA. They do not. You play a single whatever in basketball, your redshirt's broken. You have to count it. So I think we need to get that fixed. But football's doing it right, and BYU looked really good on defense, like you said.
It's interesting when that you talk about the field goal attempt, for example, or your desire to see them run it up even more. Like, there is a tacit agreement here that Portland State knows that we're getting paid to do this, and this is going to suck, right? And BYU they know they're out there to practice. Yes, it's an official game, but it's an elevated scrimmage in some ways as well. So if you're not going to trot out the 56-yard field goal against Portland State when there's 0 stakes to a miss, when are you going to practice that in live action? So
it's true. And
it's the right place to do it, even if the other team doesn't like it. It's still, from a coaching perspective, it's absolutely where you do those things.
And I wonder in the future, given kind of where this is all headed with being pretty semi-pro, right, stuff, will everybody just play an FCS game as an exhibition at some point in August, and then you play your regular season, and you pay them to come, and it can all be kind of the same. It's all televised and whatnot, but because some teams don't play FCS, some teams do, whatever. At some point, I wonder if college football actually gets an exhibition, and that it is FCS teams, and they still get paid, and everyone benefits in the same way. They can kind of go through these reps regardless. You play them. It's 1-0. BYU didn't have any major injuries. In fact, they didn't even have any minor injuries. They came out of that very healthy, which was goal number 1.
So up next is a Stanford team that lost the Week 0 game against Hawaii. I imagine that they're not looking forward to a BYU contest as a bounce-back type game, especially on the road, right? I imagine that it will be a well-attended game because Stanford still does carry a certain amount of cachet from a brand standpoint, and there's a lot of connections between Stanford staff. A lot of Utah guys have gone to play at Stanford, so there's some intrigue to this game. I doubt that it'll be 69-0, but I think that BYU is going to smash Stanford. What do you want to see in this one?
I want to see 44-10, just the best the Utah UCLA score by 1 point. That's my main no, I'm just kidding. I would like to see BYU continue to, against a better opponent, obviously. That's in disarray. This is not the same Stanford. Toby Gerhardt and Christian McCaffrey and Andrew Luck. Well, Andrew Luck will walk through that door as the GM, but those other guys aren't walking through that door. And they're just in a weird spot. And Stanford's best quarterback is actually going to start the game for BYU. His name is Per Bachmeier, who was there in the spring.
The Centaur?
Yeah, the Centaur. We haven't really the Bear Tar.
Here's the thing, if your name is Bear, you don't get to adopt a new animal nickname. Your name is already Bear.
Wait a minute. Even if Coach Barnum's like, man, I looked at that guy's backside and that was pretty funny. I want to see BYU dominate. I really do. This is a team that at home, with the talent that BYU has, the depth that BYU has right now, a team in disarray, a team that has not won 5 games in a season or better since 2018, which is crazy. Like, I respect Stanford. I see the tree and I go, that's a tough football team. It's going to run the ball, have a good tight end, play action pass you, play good on defense. Now it's a team that does TikTok celebrations and gets penalties and loses to Hawaii. Like, it's weird, right? Like, it's not the same Stanford, yet when they walk in, there's going to be a certain amount of respect that BYU is going to have because you see the Cardinal and you know what they can do. BYU's benefited from getting certain guys from Stanford. In fact, Stanford's been the bane of BYU's existence in some spots for recruiting as much or more than Utah. So you want to compete with that team on the field now that you've competed well off the field with certain guys. You mentioned the Utahns on the roster. You got Bo Tate from Corner Canyon, of course, Scotty Edwards from Olympus. So there's a couple dudes in there. Scotty Edwards is a starter and a leader on this team. Michael Ford ran for 113 yards and a touchdown. He's certainly a focus. Sam Roush is a good tight end that you want to keep an eye on. So, yeah, Stanford will be interesting. Frank Reich, you respect what he's done in the NFL as a coordinator and coach and whatnot. And he had an interesting comment yesterday, by the way. He said that Jay Hill's defense reminds him of an NFL defense. And I thought, in what way does he mean that? I think it's because BYU is unpredictable pre-snap, and then they will blitz from anywhere at any time. First, second, third down. It does not matter, which makes it super fun to watch.
The outlook for the Big 12 conference, I think, it shifts week to week to week, and we had our preseason expectations. Arizona State didn't look quite as good as I thought they would. Texas Tech looked really good, and I was hoping they wouldn't. BYU looked awesome. Utah, I thought, looked awesome. And, TCU just crushed the debut of Bill Belichick. Now Texas Tech and Utah have cracked the top 25, although we're just in week 1, so that only means so much. Your overarching viewpoint of the Big 12 conference now that we've seen everyone play.
Yeah, it would have been nice if Baylor, Colorado, and Cincinnati could have won. That would have helped. I think the narrative. TCU and Utah helped a bunch in the conversation because there needed to be some, Power 4 non-conference wins. Iowa State, to me, is the best team in the league at the moment. I actually have Utah 2 in my power poll, TCU 3, BYU, Texas Tech, Kansas, Arizona State kind of in that next group. But Baylor losing to Auburn at home was tough. Colorado losing at home to Georgia Tech was tough. Cincinnati should have tied that game late with Nebraska and Kansas City. They did not. K-State almost lost to North Dakota. That was kind of weird. And then West Virginia, Arizona, Houston, Oklahoma State, UCF. They all won, but I'm not sure any of them kind of pop, even though Arizona crushed Hawaii. I just think Hawaii stinks. So it is interesting. It's a little early to really know kind of what's going on here, but I thought TCU did a great job on Monday Night Football. That's a cool spotlight to be in. They ruined the debut of Chapel Bill, as you mentioned. And so let's go. It's going to be, 4 or 5 games before we really kind of start to get a sense of what's going on. And frankly, once we get to week 6, now it's like, okay, now it's on. We have a sense of what's happening here. But in the early going, get it done in the games that you have. And in non-conference, you got to beat that powerful opponent. Utah did last week. You're always trying to do it this week.
Jerem, love talking to you every time we get a chance. Enjoy BYU Stanford this week, and I can't wait till we're the real meaty Big 12 opponent discussions. But October 18th, after week 1, looks more and more intriguing.
Yes, it does. Stay thirsty, my friend.
Watch out for centaurs down on campus. That's Jerem Jordan, BYU Sports Nation. For those who don't understand the reference, the Portland State coach was referencing Bear Bachmeier and his impressive build. He's a man with significant muscle mass, and the coach thought he looked like a centaur, which of course is a creature of myth.
Did you notice Captain Andrew Luck Twitter account has been back since he joined Stanford football as the GM?
The old Civil War old time captain.
I did not notice until the person behind it has been tweeting since late 2023 when he was appointed GM. I reviewed a lot of his recent ones. I'm thinking he missed a little bit by not saying anything about centaurs in his when he's talking about them. We're at base camp, dearest mother.
There's still time. There's still time.
He said we're playing. We're going up and we're going to battle against a bunch of men who think they are cougars. Fascinating. So anyway, I felt like there was a centaur reference in there too. Maybe he hasn't seen the video though. Someone needs to get the captain the video so he can add that to it. But he's back right on point. The Captain Andrew Luck Twitter account.
All right, got to take our last break, and then we're going to give away some tickets to the Greek Festival. Family 4-pack to the Salt Lake City Greek Festival if you can answer our trivia question next at 877-353-0700. Sean O'Connell Show. One more segment on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show wrapping up. I've got a family 4-pack of tickets to the Greek Festival that's happening this weekend. Just on the other side, on the west side of Pioneer Park, the Greek Orthodox Church, 300 West, 300 South. 4 tickets to the Greek Festival. If you look, we didn't talk about this enough on the show. ESPN bid farewell to Lee Corso this past weekend on game day and just knocked it out of the park. It was executed to near perfection. The farewell, the tributes. Lee is obviously not where he was mentally, but he's good enough to where he was able to give picks for 6 games. 877-353-0700. Tell me, what was his record? What was Lee Corso's record in his official picks on game day for the final show that he did? He picked 6 different games. What was his win-loss record in those 6 games in his final week, making his iconic appearance on College Game Day? Spence Checketts is hosting The Drive, joins us next. How are you?
Well, Sean, as we talked about off air, I don't know that you could have asked for much more. Obviously, we weren't on air yesterday, so we didn't react to it. And it's a little bit of yesterday's news. And we'll get into it. I don't know how good UCLA is, but for today, that may not matter based off of, and it's interesting, right? Because it's easy to sell optimism when you haven't seen anything.
Yeah.
And then you see it, and then the reality hits you differently. So if, like, you're a Texas fan or a Bama fan, the reality has hit you differently than what you expected.
Baylor fan, yeah.
A Baylor, and we could keep going. Even K-State nearly just completely blew it. So if you're a Ute fan today, the reality probably superseded the expectation and the optimism. I mean, that's my takeaway, and maybe I was a little too cynical leading into the game. But the great thing about fall camp and the great thing about, like, late summer is every fan base has the optimism, and you can sell the optimism to fans. But smart football people around here, you can't sell a reality other than what it actually is. And for one game, at least, for the Utes, I think the reality is something that everybody should be really, really pleased with.
Yeah, all you can do is play the games in front of you, and you have to execute in those games. And the third down efficiency, absolutely incredible. Devin's passing efficiency, because I was saying it earlier, we know what he's capable of with his legs. We know that he's dynamic. We know that he's a playmaker there. And the question mark, everyone was looking at 12-12 from last year. Is he going to be efficient? Is he going to take care of the football? Is he going to make good decisions? He's behind a better offensive line. Hopefully he has better weapons. Like, all of that became pretty clear that when he's in a situation where he's not running for his life and just trying to offload something to keep a drive alive, he can pass the football. So, yeah, the optimism has now, I guess, morphed into an optimistic reality.
Something tangible.
Where you're like, okay, what I thought this team was capable of is actually, now we have one piece of evidence that supports that. So, yeah, I was excited all weekend. I was excited to jump on the show today and talk about it. We didn't even get into every specific point or every specific individual performance. I think I mentioned Wayshawn Parker one time today. He looked great. Kerry Rogers looked great. I mean, there's a lot to like about this Utah offense, and I will say it again. You've never had a first date or a first impression at your job, a first day at work. You've never had the sitting on the airplane next to some stranger that you just jived with. You've never had a first impression as good as Jason Beck did.
You may have answered my question because I wanted to, and I've been listening to you today. You've done a great job of unpacking it. To your point about only mentioning Wayshawn, like, you know, you do 3 hours of radio and my show is 4 hours. Combined 7 hours of content today, we wouldn't be able to hit every single topic with a game like that and an off season like we just had. If I asked you to reduce it, if I asked you to give me a reductive summary, is your main takeaway, Jason? Is it Devin? Is that the dynamic? Is it the O-line? I mean, if I asked you to get reductive instead of trying to knock every point, because to your point, there's no way we could do that. What's the main Sean O'Connell takeaway?
Utah football has an offense. Whether you say that's because of the offensive line or Devin or Jason or the confluence of all those factors, what matters is Utah football has an offense that's going to be hard to stop.
Yeah.
And if Utah football has an offense that's hard to stop, in every previous iteration of that, it has been competing for or winning a conference championship. Some of those have been undefeated seasons. I'm not going to try to gas people up to that level yet. But when Utah football has an offense that is difficult to stop, it is championship-level football because the defense is always there.
And that kid is I'm talking about Devin. Obviously the bottom line for a Kyle Whittingham coach team is you go get the win no matter what that looks like. But, man, that kid is fun.
He's awesome.
Just watching, one thing that they were productive, and that's the only thing that matters to Kyle, right? Even though he referenced Devin's electricity post game. But it's always fun to have a little extra scoop of sugar. It's always fun to have a little dessert at the end of dinner. It just makes it fun that he's just so electric and fun to watch.
It's such a great way to put it. Like, you have that dessert, you have that flashy dish or whatever, but the meat and potatoes of a 20-play, 10-minute drive is still there for Utah football. And that's like, we're all watching the Smith Snowden juking people out of their jocks and, diving into the end zone, and we're watching Lander Barton catching a touchdown pass and things like that. I bet Kyle Whittingham went back and he watched that 10-minute drive 30 times.
Yeah, it was wild.
It was just like, this is what I need.
And you could tell both post-game, and look, his media availability yesterday, 48 hours later, he'd probably come back down to earth a little bit. But I don't remember last time that I've seen Kyle that, like, almost giddy excited after the game, watching what his offense is able to do. And you've done a good job today really highlighting Jason's ability to call plays and the synergy that these two have, having known each other. And this quarterback OC combo, Oklahoma's doing it. Like, I think it's going to be a blueprint for a lot of people to find a quarterback who has a familiar relationship with an OC. Like, watching Carolina last night cycle through a couple different quarterbacks, not knowing their playbook at all, and then juxtaposing that to Devin and just having the comfortability factor with Jason and how dynamic and just 3 penalties, no turnovers. Like, I don't know, man. If you're a Ute fan, I think Saturday night was all you could have asked for.
And this week's going to be another great one. And then, Wyoming is going to be annoying, but you hit the ground running hard with it'll be a ranked Texas Tech team when you open Big 12 play.
Yeah.
So far, so good.
Away we go, man. Fun time of year.
I can't wait to hear 4 hours of the drive as Spence unpacks some of the stuff that we talked about, and stick around. By the way, Lee Corso, 6 for 6 in his final 6 picks. Talking about riding off into the sunset the right way. Thanks for listening. We'll do it again tomorrow on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network.